I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 9th meeting of the New Jersey Marine Fisheries Council. May I please have a roll call?
Dr. Bohannon.
Present.
Mr. Hollinger. Present. Mr. Hewitt is online. Mr. Johnson.
Present.
Mr. Rizzo.
Here.
Mr. Rush.
In the house.
Mr. Steedman.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Dr. Donovan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, please.
In accordance with the Senator Byron and Bayer Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6, notice of this meeting was filed with the Secretary of State and posted on the New Jersey Fish and Wildlife website on June 25th, 2026.
Thank you. I ask that you stand for flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first thing is the minutes from the May 7th meeting. Anybody have any questions, additions, omissions?
I'll move to accept the meeting minutes.
Second one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have time for a quick public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Does anybody from the public have a comment? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Personero of the Viking Boat Group. I just wanted to make the council aware, it seems like DEP Coastal Management Program is going through the process of gathering information on working waterfronts. I'm not sure if the council was aware of that or not. I know they've engaged with Rutgers. They're doing some surveys and outreach to interest with working waterfront issues. I had a conversation with them, but when I finished that, it seemed like this was something the council may want to be directly involved with. Certainly, there's a lot of interest here between Viking Village, all the shellfish, and commercial fishermen as well. I think we share a lot of unique and important issues when it comes to working waterfronts in terms of how DEP manages those areas, as we saw with the real proposal. You know, some of that was not really reflective or understanding of some of our unique challenges that working waterfronts have when it comes to climate change and sea level rise and all those sort of things. We can't necessarily just run from the shoreline. We're intimately tied to it. So I just wanted to make the council aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just say, I took the survey and had my interview. So
I did as well, John. Yeah, it was very, very good. Janine Barr was on the boat for about an hour. She did a great job, and she's really digging down deep. So, but anybody that wants to participate in that, you know, we could probably find her contact. You know, I could get it.
I can, and if you can always forward to me, I can get you it. Because I actually, we got asked to look at what they were doing and just give them feedback as scientists.
I can give you the contact. Sure.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Anybody else? Thank you. Enforcement report? Good evening, everybody.
Those who don't know me, I'm Chris Petroselli. I'm lieutenant for Cape May, Cumberland counties. Officers this past month, they settled into a pretty typical summertime pattern of just responding to fish and crab complaints. They're conducting BO patrols, routine BO patrols, and getting stuck in traffic. They conducted thousands of inspections and issued over 100 summonses for the registry and hundreds of summonses for fish violations. On patrols using the patrol vessel integrity, officers found recreational lobster pots deployed on the closed area of the Axel Carlson Reef and recreational lobster gear unlawfully deployed in federal waters. In conversations with some of these individuals, they claim to have not understood a lot of the information that came with their license. I know the department is working with law enforcement to trying to streamline a lot. Just make those regulations and that information that comes with that packet a little more palatable to the public. In more recent news, 3 draggers out of Point Pleasant were charged for dragging fluke inside the 2-mile line. The Marine Region is expecting to take delivery of 2 brand new fully outfitted patrol vehicles within the next month. We're in a pretty good place in vehicles right now for the first time in a long time. And 2 new hires are starting on Monday, and one of which is going to be assigned to the Marine Unit.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes, sir.
The gear that was encountered, the recreational lobster gear, was that gear whale compliant? Do you know? Did it look like?
So that's one thing the officers look for in those patrols, but it, this time of year is not all trip season, so that ends May 1st. So I believe that gear was, because they always make a note of it. We have patrol logs.
Yeah, it's really important to do that, right? If there's an
Yeah.
entanglement, we need to know, where that gear came from and
Absolutely, yeah.
it wasn't compliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Most surprisingly, that's one thing that we often see them compliant with the recreational sector.
That's really good.
Stuff, but that's one thing they seem to read in the regulations. So,
Okay. Thanks for that.
no problem.
Thank you. Shellfish Council, Delaware Bay,
Nothing to report.
Atlantic Coast. Ooh. Shellfish Bureau report? Anybody online?
I don't see any staff online from Shell Fisheries. We do have a hand up from one of our commercial constituents. I don't know if that's left over from public comment. You want to take that now, or you want to wait till the end?
You can take it now while we're on the topic, while we're close.
Brady, go ahead. We see your hand up, so go ahead. Unmute on your end first.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm out here fishing, so. I think I missed about bringing up other business. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do it now or after the meeting, but I've reached out to a couple people and said I was gonna bring a couple things up tonight. I don't know if now is the time or did I miss my opportunity?
Unless it's pertaining, I thought this was pertaining to, this is a,
It sounds like you had public comment and he's just a couple of minutes late raising his hand.
Yeah, just let him do it.
all right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brady.
All right, I appreciate it. Yeah, so for you guys that don't know me here, been on advisory panel for about 27 years. Or sorry, commercial fishing for 27 years. Scallop AP and multiple state advisory panels. And I have a small boat in Cape May, New Jersey. And looking to make the small boat more efficient. So a couple topics talk to other commercial fishermen about. One, being able to have multiple gear types on a single trip. Our hands are tied quite a few times where somebody might be doing another fishery and they have sea bass pots and they can't haul that gear because of simple regulations. And I think this is something that with the cost of fuel, the time savings, and less opportunity sometimes to get out there and fish because of weather, and then we can have fish that die in pots. This is just one example. But I would like to bring that to your attention. I don't know how we could go about that and put it on the topic. I spoke to a couple of people in the office and they said I'd have to start here. But I think it would do the state of New Jersey a great service. Following up with that, New Jersey TOG, fluke, and sea bass permits. 30 years ago, people put on their landings of what allowed them to have what gear type. There was trawl, pot, and hook and line. And there's a handful of hook and line in the state of New Jersey. I spoke to several people. The hook and line landings are so low. The ones who do use them. And there are multiple fishermen who would use the hook and line, whether it would be minimum, probably more on the fluke side, but more in in the black sea bass side and the TOG side. So instead of just asking for one, I think it could be basically a trifecta where we could ask and look into this. I talked to several people and they said it was brought up in the past and then it kind of just fell flat. So I'd like to bring up that point again. There's a bunch of commercial fishermen in the state of New Jersey who would benefit from this. And I don't really think it would devaluate many permits, given that there's only about a handful of each. I don't have exact numbers with me today, so I don't want to just say 5 or 6 or 12. So if there was some support or any discussion that could happen today, I would appreciate it. And if anyone would like to ask other questions, I'm here to stand by. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I just may, Mr. Chairman, it sounds like Brady's asking for a couple of changes to our regulations. Sounds like black sea bass in particular, and perhaps TOG looking line. The way we usually take these types of questions is we'll kick it to a committee. I know we have black sea bass coming up. We usually do black sea bass between September and November so that we can finalize our commercial trip limits for the following year. That's one way council could deal with it. If there's any discussion tonight, obviously we can have that, but it sounds like usually how we deal with this is we'll kick it to committee. So if council's okay with that, I'll touch base with Brady, make sure I understand exactly what the issues are and which the appropriate committee to kick it to. But if that works for council.
And then maybe talk to enforcement and see if there are any issues.
Right, yeah, obviously enforcement would be included with those meetings.
Yeah, I think you have to bring that to a committee so that, all the other parties that are involved in that fishery, can all sit in the room and not fight it out here in front of the council, or not that they're going to fight it out, but, talk about it, right? Figure it out, discuss, so I think that's a good decision, to take that to a committee level.
Celebrity death match.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brady.
Legislative report.
Thank you.
Okay, so handout number 4, and you'll see, as a precursor to this, you'll see that I'm in a different place. Executive committee met a couple of weeks ago. We talked about a couple of changes to how the meetings could be run. One of them is that you guys get all of these handouts ahead of time. That means staff can spend less time presenting. So what I'm going to say about this is handout number 4, let me know if you have any questions. Either tonight or in the future, shoot me an email. We can get you any information on any that you are looking for.
One quick question, without leafing through this, the status of the permit, Island Beach permits, is that still?
Yeah, so
limbo,
the first 2 on here on page 1 are about the mobile beach permit. So you can see over here in the status column where they are. This was as of 2 or 3 days ago when I got this update.
So they're still in committee?
They're still in committee, it looks like, yep.
Thank you.
And we'll be tracking them, so we'll, feel free to shoot me an email in the meantime, but you'll get an update in September if anything is needed.
Thank you. ASMFC.
Good news is that ASMFC has not met since our last meeting, so you have the handout with you, and
That's
going
good for
along
you.
with Jeff's theme of trying to keep things short. You can let us know if you have any questions. I think we presented the major highlights last meeting.
Anybody have any questions tonight? Bob?
So our talk the other night with TOG, are we going to be getting anything from commission soon with other information so we can actually start sitting down and hashing through stuff?
Yes, so I expect that at the August meeting, we will have a draft of the addendum and hopefully some more guidance from ASMFC on that.
Okay.
I do have one other thing to mention for everybody. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
So we've discussed this in the past, probably about this time last year. New Jersey applies for de minimis status for a number of species, but spot, croaker, and cobia. In the last few years, we have exceeded those criteria. They have still granted us de minimis for those species, but we have once again exceeded those criteria for spot, croaker, and cobia. We're asking again to maintain that determination. But there's a good chance they'll say no, which will lead to like more reporting, a couple of things, we might have to put in a bag limit for spot croaker, more reporting for cobia. Just wanted to let everyone know that that will be discussed at the August meeting as well. And so we might be looking at changes to any one of those three species, any or all of those three species coming up soon.
Are we way over? I mean, so was there a moderate increase to make us lose de minimis?
So we have been, and I'm drawing from memory here, we've been consistently over, and like the criteria is like 1% of the coastwide harvest. And like spot, we've been going over, not because our landings are increasing, but because everyone else's landings are decreasing. Same thing happened for cobia this year. We were at like 3%, 3.5%, when the coastwide is like 1%. But again, there was 50,000 less pounds or 20,000 less pounds caught in Virginia or something like that. So we're hoping that bolsters our argument. It's not that we're catching more, it's that other people are catching less.
So maybe we need to think about how they do de minimis. It should be based on not the total landings, but the total allocated pounds.
There's no allocation for those, like as de minimis, it's just.
Well, I don't mean de minimis, but overall, there's an overall quota, right? And to be de minimis, we have to be 1% or less,
Of the
right?
landings, yeah, I don't think there's a.
Oh, of the landings, that's how they do it,
Right,
okay.
yes.
Is that rec and commercial or?
Yeah, and I think cobia, there's a recreational and commercial separately, but for croaker and spot, it's both combined. I could be wrong about that, but. What's that?
They're split now.
They're split now? Okay. So yeah, I think croaker, or spot and croaker, I think particularly is the commercial, might all three be commercial. I'm sorry, I don't have the details off the top of my head.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, all the years that we landed, I myself landed, lots of croaker, right? For probably a decade, and so it's kind of confusing why now, I mean, we're seeing them come back, but why we didn't address that earlier, or why wasn't that a thing, 10 years ago or 15 years
We've
ago?
been de minimis for that long. Like,
Yeah, I know, but we were obviously when Viking Village was packing, 500,000 pounds a year, you wouldn't think we were de minimis anymore, so like what? I mean, what I'm saying to you, like what changed? I mean, the spots, you see people using them way more now for rec baits, for recreational fishing baits, and so that whoever catches them, commercial or but everybody's selling spots, so they come from all over, but I just don't really like what happened, what changed that now I didn't know we were de minimis on the commercial side for Atlantic croaker.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, sorry to jump in. So, but yeah, for a long time, Jeff was right. We didn't distinguish what de minimis meant for a lot of these kind of quiet species that were flying under the radar. So there wasn't a distinction between rec or commercial de minimis. It was just whether or not you were under a certain percentage of the landing. And back then, you have to realize, like, a state like Virginia or North Carolina might have been landing, 8 million pounds, 9 million pounds. So, you add North Carolina and Virginia together back then, and it's easy to understand that if we were at 500,000 pounds, that was well less than 1% of the commercial landings. Now to get to 1 million pounds coastwide is a big deal. So that's what's changed there. Yeah. For better or for worse, what it means to come out of de minimis for spot and croaker isn't that big of a deal. I really do think the council should consider, especially the rec trip limits, just because it's so hard to guess whether or not some MRIP estimate's going to pop up that either keeps us out of, de minimis or brings us, out of it permanently, so to speak. So I think it's something worth considering. You know, the commission is also talking about slightly more strict red drum measures. I think all three of those species are something that, you know, we could
So you
have
wouldn't,
conversations with as
though,
well.
it's common sense thinking, you wouldn't think 500,000 pounds was de minimis for anything, right? I mean, unless you're goofing with the numbers, you know, so, you know, it's just, but thanks, that's an explanation, but it just still doesn't really.
Yeah, well, and I think, you know, the other thing that Jeff mentioned that I don't want to spend too much time on right now, but is what does it mean to come out of de minimis status for cobia? I think both commercially and recreationally, that's more of a challenge because Eleanor was asking about, you know, state-specific targets, which there aren't, as Jeff was right, there aren't for spot and croaker, but there is for cobia. There's, you know, recreational soft targets and there's a commercial quota if you come out. But those quota allocations, like there's, you know, there's no automatic trigger that if a state comes out of de minimis status commercially, that we will revisit reallocation. So there's the potential, you come out of the bycatch allocation in de minimis status into a place where there's state-by-state commercial allocation and you have no allocation. So now you went from legally landing some bycatch to an awful odd limbo. I think it's one of the, you know, worst things that the commission has kind of just let happen in recent years.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So there's that for us to deal with, sir.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. We'll see what happens.
Anybody else? Mid-Atlantic.
Mid-Atlantic, handout number 6. Dealing with our new process, handout number 6. Any questions? Okay. One other thing I wanted to mention in the Mid-Atlantic Council. So the secretary appointed new members for a handful of seats that turned out in June. There was one Mid-Atlantic at-large seat that New Jersey put in for. We put in for it every time, and it went to New York, as has been the tradition for the last 10, 12 years or so. Speaking internally, we staff have been trying to get this position back because New Jersey's landings are significantly higher than New York's, and we think it would be better if New Jersey had 4 representatives than if New York had 4 representatives. So we're considering a letter from the commissioner to council, more than considering. I've got it on my to-do list, to draft a letter from the commissioner to the Secretary of Commerce, requesting clarity on why they are appointing additional New York members to council rather than New Jersey when our landings and our industry is, you know, a larger proportion of the region than New York's. So just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if the council wants to discuss putting that.
Would it be appropriate for our council to send something?
I wouldn't say it would be inappropriate. It's up to you. But I think it's a relevant, that's why I'm bringing it up. I think it's a relevant point for New Jersey to push for additional representation at the Mid-Atlantic Council.
I think this has been like the status quo SOP for, I think it's been longer than a dozen years.
Joe checked with council staff, and it's been at least 10 years. So I don't think they went back farther than that.
I mean, they might have skipped a year, but yeah, I think that a letter of some sort would be appropriate. And make a motion to send up, who should we send a letter to? To the commissioner or to the commission?
The decision for appointments is, they're actually come from the Secretary of Commerce.
Yeah.
We could copy like the Garfo, the administrator, because I'm sure the regional offices, I'm sure, then, you know, weigh in on those decisions. So the secretary, the administrator for fisheries, Pinero Soler, and we could include Garfo.
And copy everybody.
Copy the
Okay.
senators.
Seriously, I mean, wherever we need to do that as part of the motion, your explanation.
So we have a motion, we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Then you have a discussion now.
This was like, paper and, okay, sorry.
Anybody else have anything they wanted to?
Might want to add Congressman Van Drew on that.
And I'd suggest the senators too, the federal senators.
It's part of everybody.
Yes.
That's what you meant by everybody?
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
That's- Sorry,
List of-
no explanation, but it's kind of like how we have to do stuff now to be heard, so.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Bureau
Do
report.
it,
I'm sorry.
Melanic, do you have the information still on that sector separation form that they're doing September? I can't find my email again.
I can send it to you. I don't have it here, but,
The workshop in September, yeah. Yeah, I had it in my email and my email got dumped a little bit, so, I gotta see if I can get off school for it.
Okay.
Sorry. Bureau report?
Yeah, so, real quick, just a couple of real quick ones. The digest came out like May 15th, so after we met last time. I don't know, maybe most of you picked one up already, but I have copies back there if anyone wants to see the Marine Digest. Feel free to take them. An update, you'll recall that we've given, New Jersey has been called out for not having an incidental take permit for our commercial fisheries in state waters for sturgeon, sea turtles, things like that. So we're working on that application. But we've decided we don't really have the capacity in-house to work on that, so we've got funding from NOAA. We're in the process of hiring the consultant to help with that. We're actually working on it with New York and Delaware as a joint application. That RFP went out a couple weeks ago. We're looking to have someone on board by the end of the summer. I just thought I'd give an update that if anyone's paying attention, we're still working on that habitat conservation plan, which is the application for that plan. And then just an update, I think we talked about this previously. I reached out to North Carolina asking for a transfer, asking if they'd be willing to transfer spiny dogfish like they did last year. They were on paper willing. They said probably up to 200,000 pounds, at least at this point. I think we got 300 last year or 250, but they were willing to commit to 200 at this point. With a question for would we be able to send them bluefish? Generally, we do, but I wanted to check with council here to make sure. I mean, I think we were at like 2 or 3% of the quota last time I checked. So,
Yeah. On the commercial side, nothing's changed with the bluefish fishery this season so far. Nothing over the last few years. It's very that's de minimis.
so
Truly is.
Well, and we've been doing that for longer than we get in spiny dogfish. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good.
So do we have to make a motion
We
for
need a
that?
motion?
No,
for that?
no. I mean, you can if you want, but as long as you guys are okay with it, it's just a paper exercise for staff. Real quick update on the angler survey. Mike checked the numbers last week, and as far as the number of reports that we have received, we're a little behind where we were this time last year, with the caveat that some of those reports that came in for, say, fishing in May or early June might have been sent to us in August or December or something like that, and we're not counting for when they came in. But in terms of the numbers of reports we have so far, we're behind where we were last year. So just another encouragement to help get the word out. We will be sending a listserv next week. We're talking about other ways that we can help get the word out, like sending an email to our advisors to help them help spread the word. But if folks here, I think Mike said last time, ask your friends, ask your enemies, anyone who wants to submit, we'll accept it.
And also, I think we need to make it for other species like tautog now.
So that came out of the committee meeting the other night.
It's easy to do. Just change the top and say
But then we have multiple versions of the form in the same year. I think we were talking internally about perhaps understanding the need for it, but probably finishing a couple of years of fluke and changing the form for next year to include.
I think we should be able to, we could be able to pick up our fall, November, December, fall season. I think we should. There's no
Can't you just
reason why
add,
we can't add.
can't you just add it on? I mean,
Because
drop
the
down?
fluke fisheries closed and you can make the fluke, I mean, it's easy,
Yeah.
just add,
See after the
the
date.
regular species.
I don't, honestly, I don't know what the form looks like, Mike. I don't know how hard would it be to do, Mike? What would that modification look like?
Yeah, Dr. Mahanik and I were emailing about it just this week, and so, yeah, it would be a very easy change to essentially at the top of the form, or near the, like, the top third of the form, there's the species name, it says summer flounder and black sea bass. You'd simply remove those names and just have species colon and allow people to write in their names. Some anglers right now are actually reporting TOG. Paul's been great with that, and it's just as simple. And so with the form right now, you just sort of put a line through summer flounder and write in TOG. So we're getting people that do that as well, but we could make it even easier for the rest of the folks to just, like, hey, rather than have these pre-printed forms. And I did check with our TOG staff. For most fish, would they be below 28 inches? Does that seem about?
I don't think that should be a problem.
No,
I
I
don't-
think it'll be a problem, no.
Yeah, great. It's an easy change. And so again, we can just talk about the timing of when we want to do that, if we want to swap it out mid-season or after the summer
I'd like
flounder.
to see if we could get that, so we could catch the fall TOG season.
And one thing we can do for sure is, as part, our listserv is going out, like Jeff said, next Friday, but we haven't crafted the final language. I think we can try to make it a little more clear that we welcome all species, and it's just as simple as
And just say especially black sea bass, summer flounder, and tautog.
and
Just to get
bluefish,
the
and
emphasis.
especially. So I hear what you're saying, yes.
We can change that form. Sounds
Yeah.
like.
Do we have access yet to, does the state have access to our reports? DPR reports?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay. Is that being included?
Not in this, no.
Well, you don't have the
get
links.
sizes from
The
the
links.
All right.
Great. And so those were my updates from the Bureau. But we also have, Greg Hicks is here. This is sort of, it started as a follow-up to a shark committee meeting last year, maybe 18 months ago, to talk about shore-based shark angling. He's got a presentation with some questions and some follow-on discussion for what are we doing, how are we doing this, or how should we be managing shore-based shark angling. Chris, Lieutenant Petroselli is also here. He's got some info from his field observations. And I'll just mention, I'm going to put Keith on the spot. Dr. Keith Dunn from Monmouth University does a lot of shark research here in New Jersey. So he's got a good grasp on what's happening on the beaches that we don't always see because it's happening outside when we're there. So I'm going to ask Greg to come on up, stay in the presentation there, and I will pull up my slides. Give me a second to share my screen. So the folks online. And so this is handout S1. So you should have, I gave you separate handouts for slides. S1 is what Greg's going to be going over.
Good evening, Council. Greg Hinks, Principal Fisheries Biologist with Bureau of Marine Fisheries. I'm just going to go over some of the background behind this whole movement, some of the concerns with the shark fishery, specifically, again, the shore-based shark fishery, recreational, and some of the ideas that were floating around about what may or may not be done about it, and some of the stuff that joining states have done about it or planning to do about
I got him over here, Greg.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Next, please. So just some brief background. Land-based shark fishery in the past decade has grown greatly. It's still by any means a small-scale fishery, but compared to what it was maybe 10 years ago, it's grown significantly. A lot of these reports are anecdotal, either from researchers on the beach or our enforcement officers. Social media certainly plays a part in this. But this is one of those cases where it's very difficult to gauge a quantitative level of effort because of the difficulties with intercepting these anglers on the beach. So again, report to conservation officers, research, social media, steadily rising effort. What were almost empty beaches at night, you can commonly find them packed with shark anglers during the evening. And the shark rigs. More importantly, you can find shark rigs ready to fish at your local Walmart. I think that's a telltale sign that when stuff like that starts appearing, anyone and their mother can go to Walmart and see this stuff is ready to go. They can get everything they absolutely need and be on the beach in 10 minutes. One thing I did want to mention that this often comes up during regional meetings is it's referred to as a shark problem. I hear this frequently in the commercial fisheries too. There's an alternative perspective to that issue, and that's not necessarily a shark problem, but we've endured several decades of shark conservation efforts as well. So it may be seen as more of a return to balance. Whether we can say that's factual or not, just keep it in mind. Major point, the vast majority of the species being caught from the shore are NOAA prohibited species, not to be confused with protected or endangered species. It's a whole different ballgame. NOAA is basically just saying you can't target these species or do anything pretty much but immediately release them. That includes research efforts without the proper scientific collection permit from the state. One thing I did want to mention in addition to that on that note was with the upcoming Amendment 16 to the HMS management policy is that they are proposing sandbar sharks and sandbar sharks potentially receiving a quota. Traditionally, they've been a research-only fishery, but now they're getting close to completing a stock assessment on sandbar sharks. And depending on the outcome of that stock assessment, there's a very good possibility that there may be a quota assigned to either the commercial fishery and or the recreational fishery, which could change the whole ball game when it comes to shore-based angling if those quotas are established for the recs. And finally, you don't have to look far to see members of the public concerned about the shark fishery, either just because of its inherent nature, they want to conserve sharks, or because of the dangers that are potentially introduced by bringing the sharks closer to the shore.
They're already here.
Yep.
If they only knew how many were here.
If only knew what they were swimming with.
Yeah, they
Well,
were.
and that's a valid point too.
Don't even say that. They're already here.
Right. And that's a point that needs to be driven home. I agree. They've always been here, whether or not the numbers are increasing or
Fly a
they're
drone.
moving around. Sorry.
Fly a drone.
Okay, so some of the public concerns vary from obviously again bringing the sharks closer to shore, whether that's by chumming close to shore or shooting bait with a bait cannon, flying with drones these days, kayaking.
So are you seeing this on the beach, or is this just all anecdotal you're presenting? I'm kind of confused here.
I'm not personally out there saying this. This is reports from enforcement officers, social media accounts, researchers.
Can you just be a little more specific in your presentation so we can really fathom how egregious this could be or couldn't be? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and again,
it's kind of hard for us to know.
And it's hard for me too. So again, I'm not the one out there on the beach. Pretty much anything when it comes to the shore-based fishery is going to be anecdotal. I mean, not that I would consider our enforcement officers report, quote unquote anecdotal, but this is all, second-hand reports. So,
Okay, I
but we-
appreciate that, so we can, yeah, we can
Certainly.
see what we think about it.
But I will point out when there is additional information that I would more heavily weight when it comes from researchers like Dr. Dunn. Because that, I think, needs to be.
Well, that's good, yeah.
Yes. So, again, in April 2025, the Marine Fisheries Council Shark Committee met. I won't go into the depth of the notes. We discussed a lot of things, but one of the agreed measures that they wanted to take was to survey the municipalities and get a better understanding of what the major concerns were on the public side of things, and what they need from us, what they've done about it, what's worked, what hasn't worked. We started off with a small scale survey. I'll get into the results for that in a little bit. But I think we had a bigger concept of sending it out to more municipalities than was advised by DEP. They centered it mostly on the larger coastal communities. So the respondents, the ones that actually did receive responses, were Cape May, Sea Isle City, and Beach Haven. But we did have several non-respondents, including Lower Township, Long Beach, and Brigantine. Surprisingly, the results indicate little concern. Well, I shouldn't say little concern. They have their concerns, but they don't think it's anything they can't handle, I think would be the telltale story, which I honestly wasn't expecting. There was little to no interest in receiving assistance from Fish and Wildlife. One of the townships that responded did indicate an interest in participating in a sort of roundtable where we might discuss, but it's hard to have a roundtable with just one township. So whether or not we decide to expand this survey into some of the smaller municipalities and offer the same information or assistance is yet to be determined. I kind of went over already the nature of the shark fishery and the difficulties collecting data. I think everyone gets the picture. It's very difficult. Our angler intercept survey doesn't pick up these anglers because they don't participate in the project at beaches at night due to safety concerns with the survey. One point I wanted to make was social media. If you scan social media, it to me paints a picture of a fishery plagued by irresponsibility and gross negligence. I would argue that the reports from researchers like Dr. Dunton and our law enforcement officers, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but their reports are more indicative of maybe a more naive set of anglers. They're just looking for some excitement, the ability to catch a larger fish. Who's not? But there's also a great deal of responsible fishermen out there doing everything they can and things that we haven't even thought of. So I think it's an important point to be making. There's also a variety of anglers out there participating in the NOAA Cooperative Shark Tagging Program, which at face value doesn't seem like a major issue until you consider that New Jersey requires you to have a scientific collection permit to be doing any actions like this. Again, a lot of these anglers are naive to that. They don't know. They think they're doing a good thing and participating in this tagging program, and they are. But there's other issues that need to be solved for them to be able to actually do that actively. Again, back to the social media thing. It doesn't. If you take a look at social media, you'll see, millions of pictures of guys with the sharks up out of the water, far up on the beach. They're holding their mouths open. But I have a feeling that's not the norm, I think. Jurisdictional responsibility. I just wanted to briefly go over this because I think it's important to point out who can do what about what thing. And when it comes to public safety, that's not typically a Fish and Wildlife role. But I would argue to educate the public on shark safety, and there's a variety of things we can go over, whether it's just safe handling and release, or delving into advice on first aid equipment to bring with you, because these are dangerous animals, as we know. Those possibly could fall under the role of whatever we decide to do with this situation. Fishery management is obviously one of our primary missions. The state does have a responsibility to manage the fishery fairly and equitably, so we want to maintain this fishery, keep it open as much and as long as we can. But it's also important to note that really NOAA and its international partners, they're the ones working together to conduct SOC assessments and do most of the really hard science behind all this that drives the management of these things. It's not so much the state as much as we try to participate in that information, and those management policies are typically adopted by the regions and the states subsequently. And then when it comes to conservation, we like to think of ourselves as protecting the species that need protection, but at the end of the day, none of these conservation efforts that we participate in can be successful without cooperation from the public, from the anglers. Without the people on the beach actually doing the right thing and following the rules, none of this works. Management examples. I wanted to go over what's being done about some of these situations to control the shore-based shark fishery in other states. As we all know, Florida has kind of the gold standard. I'll get there, but I'm going to start with the north and work my way down to south and get to Florida. Starting with Massachusetts, they're somewhere in the middle of the timeline as far as states developing shore-based shark measures like this. So they have developed regulations mostly based upon white sharks specifically. If you read their regs, it's believed that it's likely because they have a great availability of white sharks to them, and they've reported a lot of anglers specifically going out and targeting white sharks specifically.
They are listed. They're not just prohibited. They're listed endangered, right? The great whites.
No, that's I think you're thinking of the white tip, maybe?
No, great whites are.
Right?
The great
No.
whites.
White sharks are listed.
Great whites are endangered species, yes.
Endangered
They're endangered
Okay,
species.
so I
yes.
overlooked that. I apologize.
Yeah, so that kind of changes
That's
things,
the
right?
driver.
A little bit,
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Correct. Okay, thank you. So some of the regulations they've incorporated are regulating angling with large hooks with wire leaders greater than 18 inches has been prohibited for the majority of the coastline. I forget what the percentages I measured at one point. It's somewhere between 50 and 60%. So it is the majority. But reports from some of the researchers working on this stuff have said that that it might be a sort of loophole. The anglers are finding that edge of the boundary, and they're still going there, and they're still hitting the white sharks hard. So you have to be careful with regulations like that, I guess. New York's one of the newcomers to the shore-based shark regulations. They've required baited hooks on wire leaders greater than 18 inches are prohibited from the shore. They have stated that casting by rod and reel is the only allowed method of bait deployment, so no cannons, no drones, kayaks, etc.
No drones.
Shark anglers must possess wire or bolt cutters. This is, I believe, similar to the NOAA requirements for the angling and shark endorsement. And when chumming, only mollusks or crustaceans can be used. Down in Florida, thank you. Anglers must complete a safe handling and release as well as a species identification course to acquire their fishing permit, which is free of cost. Rigs with multiple hooks are prohibited when fishing with natural bait. Leader cutting equipment is required, and chumming from the beach coastwide is prohibited.
So the safe handling and release, is that the same one that we take to have a long line permit, or do they have their own? Do they have their own? Do you know?
I don't believe so, because that's developed as to my understanding is developed and administered by Florida.
Yeah, just
and then the one you're referring to is the one developed by NOAA.
Yeah, sharks.
Yeah, I believe they're separate, though. I wouldn't be surprised if there's 90% overlap. And then coastwide, mostly just NOAA policies are non-stainless steel, non-offset circle hooks from a rod and reel required, and sharks not being harvested from the or not being harvested must be removed from the water. Next steps. I've compiled a list of things that we may or may not consider to address some of these issues. A lot of them would probably be adaptations from what other states have seen and succeeded. All of them should be considered by someone. So the first is, and we agreed upon this at our committee meeting last spring, was that one of the major responsibilities I think we have is.
Excuse me, but
Yes.
what committee are you talking
This
about?
is the Council
Federal?
Shark Committee.
The Federal?
No, the Marine Fisheries Council. The
Our Shark Committee.
Yeah, the Sharks
Oh, okay.
Committee met in April.
Got it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Just so we don't get confused here, because there's a lot of committees.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. We pretty much agreed unanimously, we have a major responsibility to educate the public and municipalities. Whether those educational materials differ from one to the other, they probably will. Those things should be developed and distributed probably, and I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. A lot of those materials already exist. We just need to adapt them to our need and find a way to get the information out there. We need to develop a list of preferred management measures. Usable measures from other states can obviously be adopted, but new alternatives being developed. And Jeff would know more about this, but there's a chance that a lot of these measures may be able to incorporate it be a notice of administrative change. So they may be, quickly acted upon rather than having to take years.
So I got a question.
Yes.
You're going on with the presentation here and saying about the beachfront. How much of this is actually happening right now? Because I know a lot of the beaches are closed at nighttime. Like Sea Isle's closed at nighttime. Ocean City's closed at nighttime.
Yeah.
So how much action is really taking place right now?
Honestly, our law enforcement might be able to.
So Lieutenant Petroselli is going to address that after.
Okay.
Yeah, the guys on the beach will have a much better picture to paint than I will, because most of my information does come from them and our researchers.
Ours is closed at nighttime. Dusk, it's closed.
Then one of the last things that I understand is already being worked upon is updating some of the management measures to increase fines across the board, I believe, right? But sharks falling under that. So I think currently, is it a $50 fine for 30? So even more. So at this point, it's you could consider a cost of good doing business. You're paying more in gas to get to the beach than that. So, but again, that's already being worked on. I don't know what the timeline is, but it's further along than either of the other items. That's the main gist of my presentation. I've got some additional details, information if anyone needs it, but I welcome any questions.
So anybody on council have any questions?
Well, before we actually move forward, I would like to see better data. Maybe
Sure.
enforcement could give us a breakdown at one of our meetings of where the issues are. Maybe there's only certain beaches that we really, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that would be really helpful to us.
Sure.
To be able to make our management decisions, to know what's actually happening.
Yeah, and
how many issues, I don't see that many issues down my beaches when I walk on them, but I don't know.
And I think that's what you're going to find. I think it's very possible that the best source of that information is going to be our law enforcement, the municipalities specifically. I was really hoping we get more information out of them, which we didn't, but that may be on our side too. We may need to ask more specific questions, something quantifiable. And our researchers, again, though, we don't have a law enforcement officer or an officer or a researcher on every beach in the state. So there's places where it's happening where we probably don't know, and there's places where it's probably not happening where we think it is. So it's going to be a mixed bag.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else have a question? While you're there, I'm going to ask if anybody in the audience has a question.
I'm sorry, you mentioned the $30 fine for what?
So this is for shark violations. What actually entails that, I'll leave the Mr. Petrelli.
I have 2 hands on mine.
Go ahead.
Scott Thomas, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I had a little statement prepared, but I'm going to kind of fly off the cuff here. My name is Scott Thomas. I'm the manager of Grumpy's Tackle in Seaside Park. I'm also the co-owner of Yakety X Kayaks. I'm a member of several fishing clubs. shark fishing is happening on a massive scale. Come hang out in any tackle shop after 5 o'clock, and I would say 70 to 75% of the sales are going to be shark rigs and mackerel. Every customer that walks out of Grumpy's is educated on the proper way to do it, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I can tell you it is not happening in other shops. And that's not necessarily a dig at the other shops. I just think a lot of the other shop owners and employees don't know. But I can tell you that the general public doesn't know the rules, because we get pictures sent into us all the time, people with sand tigers on dry sand doing the back break pose, holding the mouth open. I think shark fishing should absolutely be legal, 100%. But I think that people need to be educated on it, and lack of education is the biggest problem. You go to any tackle shop's page that does a lot of heavy posting on social media, and you're going to see pictures of sharks. It's not just in my area in Seaside Park and Island Beach, because we don't have great shark fishing here. You go down south, it's a lot more prevalent. But every customer who comes out of our shop is educated. They know. Some of them follow the rules. Some don't care. I just found out personally about the NOAA permit, that you needing the New Jersey Scientific Collecting permit for that. So that's, news to me, which a lot of our customers who are quote unquote NOAA taggers don't know about that. I am 100% in favor of Florida's system. I think they have a great system for it. When I fished in Florida, we went down for ICAST last year in our kayaks. We went a week early and fished. We did their shark permit because we wanted to target sharks in the kayaks. We wanted to do it legal. I think they have a great system in place. Grumpy's Tackle, and I'm sure other tackle shops would be more than happy to help with any sort of information you guys need, with any sort of, pictures, helping write it, whatever we can do to help. We want it to be legal, but we want it to be safe for the sharks. And we want the public we want a much better education campaign for the general public, because I'm sure a lot of these sharks aren't swimming away. Because people just don't know. My first shark, I didn't know, but I had a bluefish rig on, caught a shark, didn't realize what I did to the shark wasn't good for the shark, and that shark might not have survived. And I still think about that every time I fish, and every time I catch an unintended species. So I think the education of the general public is of the utmost importance. And it's happening on a much larger scale than you guys think, than you guys know. It's massive. We go through, I want to say 150 pounds of mackerel a week, just for shark guys, shore-based shark guys. It's happening, and it's going to continue happening. And there's people who just don't care about the laws. So educating them on how to do it the right way, I think, is the best route to take. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
I have Kevin Catterman.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Perfect. First of all, council, thank you for your time. I do want to comment also on what Scott said here. So before anything, I just want to give you a little background on myself. I actually run a land-based shark and stingray charter service in southern New Jersey and in Delaware. And I've been doing this for several years now. And the biggest aim is not just to target, specific sharks, it's to get people in the general public in contact and doing this the right way, the ethical way. Because like Scott said, one, is it happening on a massive scale? I think, yes, we're definitely seeing an increase, and this is a great time to talk about it. But also there's a right way to fish for sharks, and there's a wrong way. And one of my biggest goals, again, was to promote the respect for these animals, because as has been said, there is not enough public information. There's not enough education. Some of the properties that I operate on, and I'm able to, have a large majority of also juvenile fish in the summertime, because they're also breeding areas. And one of those things is, it's said about online is that, yes, there are, also federally protected sharks there. Here in New Jersey, we care most about sand tigers and sandbar sharks because they've been protected since the early 2000s. But you don't see signs anywhere People are fishing all the time. You don't see anything about easy ways to identify these fish and how to correctly handle them. You know, the current regulations here in New Jersey are great to the point where New Jersey is forgiving to the extent where, hey, the fish needs to be caught and, of course, released correctly while on wet sand, if anything, in the wash. That's fair. You're not endangering the fisherman or the animal to that extent if it's quickly done. You know, but that being said, you know, if you're looking at social media right now, because people are not educated well on this, you know, the wrongdoers are the people who are pursuing these animals for an ego trip, so to speak, or for social media fame, because it's a big thing. The people who are doing it the right way are not the ones who are posting. They're doing this because they enjoy the sport, and they've done it for years in New Jersey. And because of the legality of it, right, some people also are doing it, yeah, on the low, away from the public eye, to keep their eye out of it. Now you have fishing drones being sold. People are using kayaks to deploy, which is actually a better method than some of these states like Massachusetts and New York have pushed for, where they create smaller wire leader regulations, casting out baits. When you deploy baits, you're also providing more safety for the animal because you can make stronger rigs. You can get these animals in quicker. And the equipment nowadays is more than adequate to bring in even some of the largest fish. Even great whites are seen more commonly now on the East Coast here. And so that being said, it's a great time, yes, to educate people, to keep it open and legal, but also, yes, enforce with tickets and fines, people who aren't doing the right way. Because if you're respecting the animal, that's great. But if you're not, you know, that should also be shown. And New Jersey has plethora of shark species. Great whites are also, by the way, listed by the IUCN as vulnerable, not endangered. So, you know, as shark populations are rebounding since protections in the early 2000s, now is a great time to be a leader too, not only in allowing still the fishery, because the equipment is at that point, alongside education. But we do need to educate people. It's a huge income source for a lot of bait and tackle stores here in New Jersey. And I think the right step forward is to keep it open, but also to educate people correctly in how to identify vulnerable species versus not. And I show people that every day in my business. We have over 100 trips booked. Families come out, tourists that visit our beautiful state all the time. It generates revenue for even restaurants. And I would love to keep it going and showing people the right way to do it alongside the rest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Lieutenant?
So I think I've been labeled as some kind of a shark expert, but it's kind of wrongfully, but it's more or less I'm the expert by default because I cover Cape May County. I have so for the last 20 years. And that's kind of where a lot of the sharks fishing has centered around. For you know, it's expanded to so many different areas now, but it's been going on in my area for a long time.
They were still.
Hopefully I'll be able to bring something to the table, but I did compile a list of observations from a lot of the other officers in the state and some things that they wanted me to mention tonight. One thing I just wanted to get started with, the enforcement posture for shore-based shark fishing has been more focused on outreach and education over the years.
Tom P.
Yeah, our enforcement posture has been focused on outreach and education over the years. One, because the fine is so low and there's this aura and this belief out there that the fines are a lot more expensive and you can lose an arm if you get caught shark fishing or at least targeting prohibited species. And another reason is by enforcing the one prohibited species regulation that we have, which says you cannot land or possess or attempt to take or take, we're basically using that word land, right? To watch these guys, when they bring them up on land, it's technically a violation. But by enforcing that, we're forcing these guys to go in the water with these agitated sharks. And it's not so much a problem for these experienced anglers that those guys are really good. We watched them countless times. They crush the barbs on their hooks. It's the inexperienced crowd out there, which is like 50% of the people. And I watched a kid last weekend he fought a shark for an hour down in Cape May. He jumped in the water before they even saw the shark, swam out to it and grabbed the leader and swam it back to the beach and ended up being a 7-foot bull shark.
He got lucky.
Yeah, there was a couple nasty incidents in your county last summer where people got severely hurt.
Yeah, and there was three. people
They were in
that
the water.
bitten last year shark fishing, right? Yeah. So, it doesn't make me feel too warm fuzzy about enforcing that regulation, kind of, by law, making people get in the water with.
No, I don't think it's very wise.
And that's the only thing we have to hang our hats on. That's the only regulation that enforcement can use right now. Hopefully that'll change. But we have issued summonses for it in the past. For gross mishandling, bringing them up on the beach, letting them dry out. We've had people take them home, things like that. But enforcement of the prohibited species regulation depends on many factors. It needs to meet a high threshold for it to be prosecutable in court. Officers need to provide, prove a defendant set out to catch a prohibited species. They need to do so through the totality of the circumstances. It's a difficult case to prove in court. No single factor necessarily proves a violation, but multiple pieces of consistent evidence can be compelling. Officers will ask appropriate questions. Certain statements can be incriminating. Officers look at photos, social media. All these guys are posting stuff on social media, and that all comes into play at some point. But just some general observations that we've made over the years, and recently, it appears that half of the shoreside anglers are experienced, and like I said, and can identify and handle sharks appropriately. The other half have no clue, and they don't even know that prohibited species exist, let alone identify one. That's where our outreach and education comes in. But there's so many more people out there doing it. I mean, we're not even getting to the tip of the iceberg. We have so many other obligations. A lot of these guys are highly influenced by social media and/or bait tackle stores. And the inexperienced group is highly unprepared typically too. That's another thing we're seeing. They're using really light tackle. They're breaking rigs off left and right. There's a lot of the sharks that I've seen are coming up with full rigs in their mouths, with weights and everything. It's something hopefully we can see down the road, if we do establish some more regulations, is have, make sure that people are a little more prepared to handle some of these bigger sharks that are out there, especially with this bigger bull shark showing up.
There's more than that showing up.
Now that there are more species besides prohibited species around, it has provided a more legitimate excuse to be shark fishing, therefore making it more difficult to prove intent. While the intent might not be to catch a prohibited shark, people, they're still catching 10 and 1 prohibited to legal species in the process. A lot of shore-based shark fishermen are kind of like birders in the sense that they'll pull a ton of time into their activity to get to that catch that they've never observed or caught before. Tagging for NOAA, that was brought up. Many anglers do feel that they're a bit sheltered from the regulation because they're engaged in tagging for NOAA. NOAA has this apex predator tagging program.
Yes.
Anybody can go get tags and tag sharks, but their posture is, if you catch a prohibited shark, you have to release it immediately. They don't say in their guidance documents that you can't tag it. I don't know if they prefer that it's tagged, but it does just say that you just have to release it prohibited immediately upon catching one. Shark anglers do appear to be highly influenced by social media. There are a few social media martyrs out there which consistently post activity, which gets a lot of people worked up and excited about shark fishing, which is good. But since these martyrs, since they are the martyrs, we try to seek these guys out and ensure that they are handling sharks appropriately, because they're posting these pictures, and if they're bringing them out of the wash and mishandling them, then a lot of people that are watching them are going to do the same. Another interesting thing is we get a lot of reports of sand tigers washing up dead on our beaches. I know marine fish get some, but I think enforcement gets a lot of them. Because a lot of them do happen it happens on the weekends. And from what I understand, and an angler told me this past weekend, he said sand tiger sharks, they don't tend to chew their prey. They swallow it. They don't have serrated teeth, so they swallow their baits whole, and they get gut hooked a lot of times. So that's why I think we're seeing a lot of these sand tigers.
I transmitted 150, internally transmitted 150 large coastals in the last 2 years. And some of the sand tigers, I have bite marks in the back of my boat. They're so big, I don't even want to handle them, to be honest with you. And it takes everything I can do to dehook those with the approved de-hooking devices, the long handle, you know, and I can usually get them. I've always get them, but it's a battle, you know, to de-hook a gut hooked sand tiger. They'll swallow like a 20-pound smoothie whole.
Yeah.
They'll just come right up and just take the whole thing down one shot.
One
So
So
yeah,
they're hook type, is there like, they can use stainless steel or are they using?
they
By law, they have to use non-stainless. Yeah,
non-stainless,
non-offset.
not offset.
Yep.
Is it a circle hook or can they use
Yeah,
J
it
hooks?
has to be a circle.
Has to be. That's good.
So that's, you know, in addition to the prohibited species regulation, we do enforce that as well. But most people are compliant with that. I don't see a whole lot of.
Yeah, that's
Which beaches are you having a problem with, Chris? Which ones are showing up to be the major issues? I mean, because ours is closed at sunset, the sun up, and cops are riding the beach every day. Avalon's the same way too.
Right.
Stone Harbor and everything.
I mean,
So
there are people that slip through the cracks in those towns and get, you know, I mean,
Right.
the cops have so many other things to do in those towns, so they don't force those.
no, they're out there at nighttime. I see them cruising stuff like that. To see the buggies all the time. Yeah. So
But I know one of our officers was just watching guys last night on CL catching some sandbar sharks right at the inlet there. I think it was,
CI
I don't know what
part.
time it was, but, so, you know, because of that, I think a lot of guys are being forced to go down to Cape May, you know, and Cape May is still Mecca.
That's the
You know,
sand tiger.
yeah, well, yeah, Delaware Bay always was. So
Yeah.
But as Scott pointed out, I live in northern Ocean County. It's grown tremendously in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
In northern Ocean County. And the only town I think that restricts beach access is Point Pleasant Beach at night.
So my experience, you know, I earned my directed shark permit, pre-permit in 1988. So we were sandbar fishermen, and NOAA came to us and said, underutilized species, you guys go get them, you know. So we all rigged up and off we went, you know. And so within 3 years, they gave us the boot, and I think it was 91 or 92. We just started, it wasn't long, maybe 94, I can't remember, it's been so long ago, but anyway, we got the boot, and for all these years, I've just watched these sharks increase, the population, you know, especially the sandbars, and now we're at a point where I think we're in full recovery, and nobody knows how to handle this, so that's why the anglers they're available, and, you know, I mean, so I always say we never know how to handle our successes, and I watch this, you know, over the decades, right, of just watching what happens. And now we're to the point where, you know, like our gear, I mean, they just chew my nets alive, you know, I mean, I just haul back holes, you know, and it's crazy. I can still fish, but today I had my cork line bit in two, the net was ripped apart. I don't know what did that, probably a bull, bit 3/8 rope clean off, looked like cut with a knife. So, I mean, you know, this whole shark thing it's geared up. It's been gearing up, especially the last 10 years.
Yeah.
There's a run of, you know, I monked offshore in like 20 fathoms for probably 25 years off of Cape May. And there is a run of sandbars that come through there in June it's biblical. And most of them, I think a lot of them are now go right to New England. You know, they're spread up and down the coast. Because I work with Jeff Kneebone, you know, from the New England Aquarium, and we talk a lot about sharks. But everything's really changed a lot, and I don't know how, you know, I think only through education and telling people how to handle these things and calming everybody down a little bit, because I mean, people are getting bit, people are getting chewed up. I mean, there was an expert last year that got lost his leg almost, you know, a guy that had been angling for sharks for quite some time. So I think, you know, I think this is a really good discussion, but there's a lot of details, you know, to be ironed out and talked about with this fishery. But thanks for
it's
all your
also not just sandbars either. I mean, there's spinners in the back bay too. I mean, we do party cruises in the back bay. You know, we do party cruises.
Black
stuff.
tip spinners.
You see the black tips and the spinners in back of the Commoner Club Cedar Island there with kids swimming.
Right.
You know, and you see the fin pop up, and it's like, huh, you know.
Yeah, there was a thresher caught in Cape May last year on the
people
beach.
on the boat are pointing to the fins, and you know, they're down in the drink, and they're like, ooh.
Yeah, I think it's those kind of more unusual species to catch from the beach that is the draw, because people catch so many sandbars and sun tigers. You can go any day and catch one of those, but those other species are a little more rare.
The bull seems to be the one everybody wants to get up here now, right? That's the golden goose per se.
Absolutely.
So we actually even had some caught at our lighthouse right inside the inlet last fall, Barnegat Light. You know, I saw the pictures, and they were bull sharks.
Yeah.
It's been a few already caught in the Holgate area.
big ones too.
Yeah, nice big ones, yeah,
They're
so.
always big. They ain't small.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah. It's a lot to think about. But the NOAA tagging program, I mean, that's, I mean, I love the science end of it, right? So these 150 that we transmitted will be picked up by the acoustic array that Monmouth has through the RMI. We'll be able to watch and see how they moved, and that may be help with these municipalities. In my experience, I can ride around and just spot them on my machines. I run 3 different kinds of machines on the boat, but I can see these sharks, and people they're not being drawn to the beach by these shark fishermen. They're prevalent. I mean, I see them every day when I cruise around, they're there. So they're in the environment. I think these transmitter fish, right? It's an easy pass system. I think will start to unlock a lot of information about the movements along the New Jersey shore.
Yeah.
But for sure, there's just way more than people realize. And there's way more. That's why they're available to the anglers so easily.
Yeah.
The other issue for the education part of it that you're not going to see, it's a double-edged sword, is I don't think any beachfront's going to put up a sign for shark fishing because that's a major attraction. So I don't see anybody putting up
Come get 'em.
yeah.
They're here.
Yeah.
Catch them, yeah, that's that. I mean, we were talking about putting a guidance document together, and I think we're halfway there, right? And I guess a lot of townships probably aren't going to be receptive to putting it on, the entrance of their beach, but at least we can get them out to bait tackle stores. You get started anyway. I think the guidance document will be really helpful once we get that out and educating the public.
I want to thank you for coming out
That's
tonight.
great.
Before you step down, anybody in the audience have a question for Lieutenant?
Can I ask the Lieutenant one question?
Yes, sir.
Just go back on it. Just, could you confirm, you mentioned something about you are using social media to issue fines, that's one of the things.
Yeah, it's
contribute to taking something forward.
it's certainly one of the factors, for this type of violation. It's not criminal, it's preponderance of the evidence. It's a civil in nature, it's kind of like getting a parking ticket. So any little piece of evidence is not going to make a case, but multiple pieces of evidence will. So social media will certainly come into play, and whether or not we'll get a successful prosecution, or even whether or not we'll bring it in a court.
Can I ask, you don't have to answer this, but is enforcement monitoring social media for situations?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have a couple of online commenters, if you would.
Scott, go ahead.
I just want to just a quick follow-up. The amount of sharks that are around this year, it's been growing year in year. The amount that are around this year is insane. There's six confirmed bull sharks caught in, I'll say Ocean County, because I don't want to give the exact locations, because I don't want to send people to these beaches to target them, that I've seen pictures of, and 2 in the bay that have been caught. Now, we always get a ton of sharks in the bay, but there's an insane amount in the bay, an insane amount out here. There's been one of our customers, he went 9 for 11 3 nights ago or 4 nights ago, right before the swell started. So there's just a ton of sharks out there, and there's people who are going to do it. So let's educate them. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just following up on that too. Yeah, there are a ton of different species here now, and like after doing this for over 10 years, you've really seen the amount of tropical species that have shown up here more than anything. And that's where it becomes difficult, right, to manage it too, because sure, we're talking about sand tigers and sandbars. And sand tigers, yes, I think they are very sensitive to fishing, and that's one thing that definitely should be looked at, because they just gulp, they just swallow the hook. But it's also that we have, a lot of black tips. I mean, if you sit out in Ocean County, as Scott said, every day, and you look at the beach out there, you'll see spinner sharks all over our beaches, and they're becoming more prevalent. So that's the thing, and those are not protected species. Those are just like the bulls. They show up here every summer, more and more. And I think if anything, like the officer said, the sand tigers, that's a big problem. That's what we want to mitigate. We don't want to have sharks washing up. Do we have dolphins and whales wash up too? Yeah. We don't go to banning, boating, near whales. I mean, we try, right? But it still happens. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. So some states, what they've done to help with the sand tiger problem is anti-choking devices on the line. And we've also actually adapted to using those. So there's ways to still get around it, just to modify the fishing rigs and, know that we do have a lot of sand tigers that are probably very sensitive. But I appreciate the council's time regardless. Thank you.
Thank you.
So to follow up on Kevin's thing on specific rigs, I've had the opportunity the last couple of years to fish alongside Keith Beck and some of his other crew members when they're tagging. And I specifically used the shark blocker rig that University of Delaware has done their studies with. And I've been 100% successful with no gut. With a 12-inch piece of PVC 5.5 inches above the eye of the hook. Every single hook gets in the corner. Every single hook I'm able to get out by hand or with a short pair of pliers and release it within 30 seconds. So there is ways 100% to do this successfully. Like I said, Keith's seen me do it. I've tagged with the Canyon Aquarium. There's people that work with Keith, and I've been 100% successful. I mostly do deploy it via drone or kayak, but I can cast it as well. So it'd be something I'd be interested in having any of you guys fish with me for a night and seeing how successful this rig can be.
That's from beach fishing?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there have been studies too where they'll use them on line liners. I've seen guys using City Maryland with no charters using successfully. I've seen them use it for Mahi. Essentially, like, I've caught over 90 sharks the last 2 years and not a single one's been good.
And what species? All species? All.
I've got black tips, sandbars, and sand tigers.
Good work.
On the rig. With a 20-0 circle hook that I dremel the barbs down. Even little sandbars that are 4 or 5 feet with a 20-0 that never swallow it, it's always in the corner.
Good work.
So if anybody would be interested, I'd love to show you how I do it and how successful I've been doing it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
That's one thing we observed too, is the guys that are following the barbs off are releasing the sharks so much faster.
That is the problem. Yeah. Once the barb's set, especially in the gut hook situation, then you're fighting the barb.
Yeah.
And you're down there 2 feet, 3 feet away from it. And you're trying to manipulate it. The NOAA tools, the disentanglement turtle tools are very successful. We keep those aboard. If you know how to work those things, they work. The end of the hook gets behind the little circle and you push back, and they do work pretty well. But it's you gotta be used to doing it. I've taken that disentanglement course 7 times in my life. That's my permit renewed. So you after a while, right, you learn, but you really learn. But yeah, so I think that's an important tool. It's the de-hooking devices. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time also, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you.
A comment that I'll make is that apparently Shark Committee meeting is probably going to get moved up the run a little bit. And for people who happen to be in the audience or are listening in, I don't know, I'm not on the Shark Committee on purpose. And,
you on my sheet?
I don't know. Well, I don't know how many land-based shark anglers we have as advisors. So if you're interested in being an advisor, I think if that would be a side effect of what we did today, that would be fantastic, and we can go forward. So come speak to, not me, Jeff, after the meeting, and we'll do that. So thank you. That was a terrific presentation. I feel a whole lot more informed. Thank you. Okay, I think we're on to committee reports. If I can make one comment before the committee reports, not to steal the highlights of the executive committee, but one of the objectives from the executive committee was to shorten the time we spend together every other first Thursday. You guys are saddled with me, who answers to the nickname Chatty Patty, as the chair. So I'm now, other than when Heather was in charge, the author of the 3.5-hour meeting. We're trying to eliminate that. So Our committee reports will be synopses of the committee reports. If anybody has any questions, we have the full committee report here. Anybody in the audience wants a copy of the full committee report, we'll get it to you. But we are trying to address how long these meetings have gone on, because quite frankly, it's not fair for the public comment at the end to be at the end of a 3.5-hour meeting. And we recognize it, we're trying to do better. So, not that the pressure's on John, but strike fast committee.
Well, I had a 20-page report prepared for tonight, but
That's it, I'm leaving.
3 sentences.
The Striped Bass Committee met on June 3rd at Nicode Creek, kind of in response to several questions that have come up to the council about the Striped Bass Bonus Program. So basically, we entertained 3 topics. Should the program be continued? How can compliance with the program be improved? And should the Striped Bass Bonus Program season be opened earlier than the current May 15th date? So basically unanimously, everyone, the advisors all agreed to continue the program. That was an easy topic. We talked about a number of ways for greater education and outreach, including expanding the write-up in the digest in future years, sending out monthly reminder emails to folks that have a bonus tag, and some other items of education and outreach. The biggest topic was, should the season be opened earlier than the current opening? And through the discussions, we really didn't reach consensus on whether or not that change should be made. So we did come up as a committee, along with the advisors, with recommendations brought forth to the council to consider tonight. We came up with 2 options. One was to consider the idea of opening the program earlier than May 15th. And if the council moved forward with that one, the first step would be to contact through a letter ASNFC to get feedback as to whether they would even consider such a request at this time. And then the second one was to maintain status quo for 2027 and prioritize a discussion of this based on the results of the stock assessment that we're supposed to see sometime in the late summer of 2027. So those are the 2 options before the council.
Chair, I have a follow-on to that. I actually have slides, but I'm going to try it without slides. If you guys feel like you need more, I've got slides that I can go with. So after the committee met, and we have 2 options in front of council tonight. Do we submit for a change now, or do we wait until after the stock assessment? Staff, we were talking internally, and we came to the realization that this is a big question. This is a very popular program. And we've had our advisors input, we've had the committee input, but it seems like it might be beneficial to hear from a wider audience of participants in the program. So basically, there's 2 ways we can play this. We've heard from the advisors, we've heard from the committee. If council feels they are ready to make a decision tonight, they can make a decision tonight on how we move forward, these 2 options. Another way to do it would be, if you choose to, we could push this decision off until September, say, or your September meeting. Try and get more participation, more feedback for you on the decision. If we did that, we would have to, if we did that and the decision was to try and change the plan, we would have to send our proposal into ASMC essentially the next day. We can develop the plan between now and then so that it's ready to go if that's the decision. But basically what I'm trying to put in front of council is you can make the decision tonight, or if you feel like you want to hear from more of the participants in the program or others as well, we can figure out how to get additional, maybe we have a bunch of striped bass fishermen here tonight. But if we wanted to wait and get some more input before making a decision, we can make that happen.
Joe first, then Bob.
Well, I think what's missing out of the report is the reason why we're looking at other options is because we're only catching 10% of the quota. Okay. That's why we're looking at this subject. And I think that should have been like number one reason on your summary why we're looking at different options.
Bob, fair enough.
We've had this asked before. Where did the May 15th date come from for that program? I can't remember what our response was to the May 15th. Why we always went to May 15th.
So I'll spitball here. Maybe Mike had to have some more information. Unfortunately, Brendan's out of the country, so he'd be most.
Still lost.
No, that was Tyler.
Oh, they all went somewhere, didn't they?
We have another staff
round
who's
them
in
up.
Europe whose plane got canceled. He's been stuck there an extra couple of days. Anyway, May 15th is, part of the concern is allowing them, if we don't want to put too much pressure on the spawning population. So they're coming in March, April. We don't want to be targeting them while they are spawning or before they're spawning. So I think that would be a large justification behind pushing it to May 15th. And I'll look to Mike and Heather. That makes sense, right? I mean, that sounds, I think that's what I've heard discussed before.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, so the question was why in the past we started May 15th. We're not relying on this, we're not leaning on this reason any longer, but I think at the time we made that decision, it was about the time it takes to sort of process the previous year's data, and so it gets us kind of ready for the new year. When I've spoken to Brendan, it doesn't sound like that's as strong an argument anymore, so we're not saying it couldn't move it for that reason. But that's at least part of the reason why we didn't go earlier than May 15th. In addition to the spawning issue, it was about as early as we could get that gave staff a comfortable amount of time to process everything. But again, that's not what we're relying on now. We're not taking that into account.
Well, for the bonus program, since we are not catching our full amount for the bonus program, couldn't we leave it open year round?
That would require approval from ASMFC. And that's
Well,
what we're talking
okay. Well, if they approve it, yeah. So
Well, I think you'd have to close spawning season.
And some amount of time for accounting.
nah, come on with AI nowadays. Come on.
But isn't spawning season mostly March and it doesn't really go that much in May? It's March and April are the peak ones.
Well, we actually assume a spawning that goes into like June for some of our work. So yeah, we have a pretty wide spawn. It kind of moves from year to year, but
Depends on the water temperature.
We do have a pretty wide berth.
I'll just remind everybody that in the initial discussions, one of the dates suggested wasn't March 1 when the striper season opens, but it was moving it to May 1 to give the full month of May. Right, Joe? Right, we talked about May 1. And then other people said, like Bob said, just have it consistent with when the striper season is open. But at the committee, we didn't discuss specific dates. We just discussed whether we should consider extending the season or not.
Correct. And when we get to this point, whenever it is, when we write our proposal, we can write it such that it's not necessarily open-ended, but options that we put in front of ASMFC. And if we opened it on March 1st, this is what our harvest would look like. If we opened it April 1st or May 1st, whatever, so we don't necessarily need a set answer to do the proposal. The question is just, when do we do the proposal?
Yeah, right. So option 1 says, let's do it now. And option 2 says, let's wait for the stock assessment.
Go ahead, Greg.
Thanks, Jeff. I mean, I think if we sent it in now, Jeff, I think we'd be wasting our time. Just as, observation here. I think that it would just go on deaf ears with the assessment coming up and what we went through last year. I don't think that really, I don't even think they would consider it, just thinking in the way they've been in the past, but this is just my thought with it. I mean, I'd like to hear your input on that or anybody else's, but I don't even think they would consider, passing this right now to us right now. So, I mean, but what are your thoughts?
Mr. Chair. Do you mind if I?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'll relieve Jeff on that as one of the commissioners. I don't know if Adam is on. Yeah, I think I agree with Greg's assessment. I think one of the other things to point out that I think we had a really good discussion. Brendan's done as good a job as can be on reporting, especially whether or not someone even had any activity. So we haven't had the pleasure to see all that, but I think it's the kind of thing that we would build a case for with ASMFC if we had to present that data. But I think one of the important things, Joe pointed out very recently, we used a very low proportion of our quota. On average, I think we were getting closer to 20% usage, very low. We've got reporting that suggests we've got about 60% non-compliance with mandatory reporting. So if you're going to the commission, they're probably just going to add that on top, right? So you're talking about, they're saying you don't have 80% to play with, you maybe have 20% of your quota to play with. Makes it a much harder argument on top of the fact they're waiting to see what a new stock assessment looks like. So.
Thank you.
Greg's got a hand up again. Go ahead, Greg.
And, Joe, I agree with you. I wasn't going to go down that path here tonight, but there's more non-reporting with the striped bass bonus tag program than there is reporting. Okay, so I mean, and you guys think differently than whatever, but I just, I agree with Joe 100% with what he just said right there. So I think that we'd be better off kind of positioning ourselves and seeing what happens and then taking a shot at it when we have, our whole, I guess everything in front of us, as opposed to trying to just kind of shoot from the hip here and hope that it goes through, because I don't think we have a chance of them accepting it at this point. But again, that's just my opinion with it. So thank you.
So I believe we can have somebody make a motion, because the committee report is not making a motion. It has two options. Somebody would like to make a motion concerning which of those two options, or if nobody wants to make a motion, this will roll over to September if they wish.
I'll make a motion, we table it till September.
I'll second
Get
it.
more input.
Because I think we do need more input from the striped bass fishermen, besides just who our advisors are. And then that way we're getting more of the public input. So I'm in favor of that.
Does anybody else have any comment? Go ahead.
So Jeff, if we go with that motion, is there a way, would you do a survey of the permit holders, or?
So there's a couple of ways we can do it. So we could do a questionnaire like we've done, not calling it a poll or a survey or anything like that, but as we've done, like say, live sea bass recently, we could reach out to all our bonus program applicants to see if they have a preference. We could essentially turn this meeting in September into, carve out a portion of that meeting for a public hearing, like we do when we make decisions on some of our black sea bass. Both, do the questionnaire and allow time to speak. We don't do this usually, but if we wanted to have a separate public hearing just for that, that's an avenue. I don't know how exactly we would do that, but it's an avenue we could pursue if folks didn't want to take up the council's time with that type of meeting, or, that portion of the meeting. So there are some options there, and, any guidance you have for staff on how you prefer we do it would be appreciated.
So
I got a question. So, I think when you're gonna do that survey, I would ask if they report their tag information. So we can start getting a handle on.
Compliance.
Because I remember, I didn't know if I didn't catch any, I didn't report it because it was zero, because on the trip report, I just, you know what I mean? It's like,
Right, yep.
so if I did it,
That's
I
the
could
end of
have.
the year log. That's
Yes.
different than reporting a harvest within 24 hours of when it occurred.
but is that what we're talking about, or are we talking about compliance at the end of the year?
Some of both. Well, so I think Joe's point, that was the end of year compliance.
End of year, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so I think we start doing that, we can start making these people aware. And maybe you have a sentence there that says, we need you to comply. We need you to answer
Right, yes,
at the end of the year.
So out of the bonus tags going out, what percent's coming back? And if we're not getting a large percent back, has anybody asked the question of why?
That was in Brendan's presentation at the last meeting. I don't have the number on the top of my head, but I could pull it.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head either, but has anybody asked the question why they're not coming back
I
there
think
too?
that's to Eleanor's point. I think we do a questionnaire like this. Do you return it? If not, why? That would be, yeah. Joe?
My suggestion would be that the council approve anything that goes out to the public, just so we can review.
Yeah, I would be willing to help you, like, get the
Like if the questionnaire
template
goes out,
together,
right?
I will help you with the questionnaire.
Yeah, I mean, that's something Eleanor's good at.
Yeah.
That I would like her to be involved in that.
I'm willing to help.
And then the council will get a chance to, via email or a phone call, just so everybody gets a chance to see it, something like that goes out.
Because like I said, like with the summary, the basic premise to the whole thing was only catching 10%, and it was left out of the summary. So if I would have proofread this before, I would have said, hey, you got to give the reason why we're doing this.
Right, yeah. No,
You know what I mean?
That's a fair point. I apologize that didn't make it.
Anybody else have any discussion on the motion?
I think there's one other thing that we need to think about is we need to add compliance, because if people aren't reporting, then I don't think they should get the tag the next year. Once we let them know, once we get the word out.
Well, let's handle this one first, but I think that's something we do need to
For the
address.
future, I'll talk about down the line.
Yeah.
If you'll entertain a question from staff before the motion. Mike's got it.
Go ahead, Mike, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's, excuse me, I was going to say, I don't want to kick the can down the road forever, but I just want to say that if you were to solicit public input on the bonus program, which it sounds like you're interested in doing, just thinking that the perception, people's perception of the bonus program might depend on their perception of the stock. And so right now the stock looks like it's in pretty bad shape. So that might affect people's perception of what they think should happen with the bonus program. If we wait until the stock assessment comes out, we may have a different perception of the stock. It might be different, it might be the same, but I guess the only point I'm going to make is the timing of the survey. If people's perception of the program relates to the perception of the stock, we would essentially be asking ourselves to do this twice. Like, what do you think of the bonus program now when the stock is in really bad shape? But I don't know what the new assessment's going to show, but the assessment shows things are going great. People might be a lot more permissive. So I just want to mention that for consideration.
But you were talking about a questionnaire just to people that are in the program, correct?
I think that's what I said, but that doesn't necessarily, maybe it would be better, like, where did we send the Black Sea Bass one? Was that to the entire registry?
I don't remember, but we can, if they do whatever we did, we'll remember what we did.
Right, yeah. I think, if we asked only the bonus program people, that might not be a full evaluation of, or, representative of what all of our anglers think. We might have anglers who don't participate because they don't like it, right? So,
If I can make a comment, I think we're making the point that we're not ready to do anything right now.
Yes.
Correct.
Right? So, we're not just pushing this off. There's been a lot of good points made here. And I think, we need to be careful how we articulate this, careful when things go out. And I don't know if it's another striped bass meeting or whatever it's going to take, but we need some time. I think that's clear. All right. So,
We just don't have to act on anything then.
No, right now, no.
so if you wanted to make a motion that we table that motion.
I already did.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Bob.
Yeah.
Wait, I still want the survey.
Eleanor seconded it.
to table the decision until September.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I second it.
Okay, all right.
But not, yeah.
Okay.
But I would like the survey to go out.
Yeah, well, yes.
We'll work on that.
If this motion passes, which I assume it will, staff will work toward getting more information for that September meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, do we need to add this to the motion, or we're good with? we're just
No,
good the
we're
way
good
it
with
is?
that. And I
Okay.
mean, to my point earlier, assuming, or if, in the event that at that September meeting, you say we want to act now, we are gonna need to have a proposal ready to go the next day. So ASMFC requires 2 months prior to the meeting that the board reviews a request, they need the request. So if we submit it in September, they will meet in November. If we don't send it in September, they're not gonna see, the earliest they would see would be February of next year, which kind of defeats the point, right? So we will work on developing a proposal so that if council decides they want to work, we want to do it soon, we'll have the proposal to go in.
Okay.
Does that make all sense?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we,
We have a motion, yeah, to table.
make a motion?
No, not table to vote on. I made the motion to vote on.
No, he made the
Your
motion.
motion was to
Right,
table
right,
this decision
right.
until.
Yes, correct.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
We will work on that.
Thank you, John. Next up is the Executive Committee. Executive Committee met on June 10th. There were several topics that were on the table. Striped Bass Committee advisors in attendance. We've had trouble with attendance at the Striped Bass Committee. We reviewed some of the membership, and we've made recommendations about people who did not come and people who should be added. That will come later in the form of a motion. Committee responsibilities. The Executive Committee met to discuss where different species would land in terms of law enforcement, new species, and we're trying not to saddle any of the committees with too much work and trying to find appropriate slots for several upcoming topics, as we heard today with spot croaker and that. Also, council meetings. Staff has received comments from council and the public about the length of council meetings. So, as I mentioned earlier, what we are trying to do, instead of reading through everything, we're trying to give you the highlights of each thing. The full information is available, but we are trying to streamline our meetings so that we can keep it under the 3 hours that we seem to be at right now. Administrative activities. Commissioner Golden has asked that the council administrative guidelines be reviewed and updated. The executive committee has noted that one of those things is that in addition to the 2 vacancies, almost all members are serving in expired terms. So we would like that to be one of the administrative things that changes as quickly as possible. Also on the executive committee, I had the opportunity to meet with, along with the chairman of the Fish and Game Council, to meet with the DEP commissioner. We had a terrific meeting. Quite frankly, he said it was a hard limit on an hour and 1 hour and 45 minutes. We were still discussing how to get more funding for marine fisheries. I explained that there were several words that were not to be spoken out loud that would terminate my membership again on the council.
Don't start.
I know. So that was taken off the table. But Commissioner was very open to some ideas, and the Commissioner and Assistant Commissioner Golden and several members of staff will be fishing with me on Friday the 24th. So they will be a captive audience for me that day. We have several motions that came out of the meeting. I'll put it all together in one motion. Approval of Paul Hartel and Stephen Spinelli as advisors to the Striped Bass Committee. Dismissal of one advisor from the Striped Bass Committee. A courtesy letter to another striped bass committee advisor moving out of state, revising the administrative guidelines and advisor applications to clarify expectations of advisor participation, and assigning offshore sand mining and maintenance dredging to the Access Committee with the addition of Bob Rush and Greg Hewitt to committee membership. So that serves as a motion with a second.
Second.
So, any discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it seems like as relevant a point or time as any. You mentioned the meeting materials, they're available to the committee council ahead of time. I've been meaning to, or I've been trying to find a good time to mention that probably a lot of the audience already knows that all of the meeting materials are also on the Marine Fisheries Council webpage. At Dr. Donnelly's request, we've also started making the slides. We know that it can often be difficult to see the slides. So I'm trying to get those online as well. We're making copies here. There's a couple handouts in the back, maybe not enough for everyone, but at least a few of you. But they're all black and white. If you want color one, you can go online and get them.
Can I say thank you, because I've been reading on my
For getting for the hard copies of the material, yeah, there's a couple of full handouts.
We're aware how difficult it can be to have a discussion. And quite frankly, Mike and Brendan did a fantastic job at the last meeting. And I think the two of you were climbing over each other to take pictures of slides while they were balancing the projector on Heather's shoulder.
It was quite
yeah, no, it looks like twisted. Thank you. Non-traditional.
Our non-traditional species committee met on June 17th. And right now we consist of any species that's really not in a fisheries management plan currently. So we're trying to figure ways that we could possibly branch off. But first off, what we mainly met to discuss the potential to develop sheep's head regulations and other topics. So the staff presented details on the different management strategies used by the various states for sheep's head up and down the coast. And we used some of that information, and our committee recommended a possession limit of 4 fish per person, which is consistent with the state closest to us that has a possession limit, which is Maryland. And since no other state requires a closed season, the committee recommended a season from January 1st to December 31st, even though we don't really have them then, but we wanted to keep the whole time open. It didn't make sense to close it. And we discussed commercial regulations, but we said they're not necessary at this time. But the committee requested staff to confirm that recreationally caught fish cannot be sold, because we want to make sure that that doesn't fall into play. Since the committee also consisted of bait species, besides all the non-traditional, which could be sheep's head or oyster toadfish or other species, we decided we're going to move the bait fish to a separate committee. And and for advisors, we would include bait shops and bait harvesters. And for the sheep's head, as we get closer to developing the actual management plan, we would like to pull in advisors for that committee too. So we will have advisors on there to help us map out the final regulations. So that's about where we are with my report.
Thank you.
And there's a real more detail on the paper here if you want to look at it.
Thank you.
So there was a recommendation that came out for sheep's head regulations.
Yeah.
4 fish, 12-inch minimum size, no closed season. Handout 9B has some of the information that the committee looked at to get to that. But yeah, so I have a couple slides we can walk through if you want, or it's a committee recommendation. So
you have that.
Yes, 9B has the information. One piece of information on here that the committee didn't look at, I had the information, I forgot to pull it. Thank you to Mike for sending it to me. The bottom on the front of 9B shows what anglers are reporting through Emmerich in terms of how many fish they're catching on a trip. And it just so happens that the largest harvest that's been reported for Emmerich in the last handful of years is 4 fish. So it wouldn't, it's based on the data we have, it's not like setting a limit at 4 fish would be cutting off half the fishery or anything like that. But the recommendation is 4 fish, 12 inches, no closing, recreational only.
Mr. Chair.
Joe, if you would.
Yeah, thanks. Jeff, I didn't know if you were going to join us. And I don't know if this was related.
John just sent that email.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
So Delaware just reached out to us. John Clark, many of you probably know, is retired, but he's come on as a consultant. One of the things they asked him to handle is Delaware is going through a very similar discussion and would like to have proactive regulations. Delaware cannot put that into action unless there's some sort of management plan. This isn't something ASMFC is looking at. So Delaware has reached out to us because in rare instances, what they pointed out was that early on, before ASMFC had a fishery management plan for black drum, there was a joint Delaware Bay, New Jersey, Delaware plan. If something like that was of interest to us, Delaware would be interested in looking at having similar regulations. So I think that's also something for
I
the
think that's
council to
something we should
consider.
look into, because I mean, it makes sense to have the same regs in the southern part of the
If I could
state.
ask you a question, does that change your 4 and 12 inches? It's good if you could have a discussion with them.
I don't think we're gonna vote on anything
Okay.
today
All right.
anyway, because we didn't make any
Okay.
full recommendation.
That wasn't a recommendation for 12?
Well, did you make a recommendation? Because I thought we were gonna have discussions with advisors too. Before we move forward with the final ones.
So it was a recommendation, but not a motion.
Correct.
Okay.
That makes that easy. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Joe, we can move forward with that, and I can work well with John. I know John will.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else have anything on sheepshead? Okay. TOTOG committee met 2 days ago. Very lively meeting. We discussed that the ASMFC has come up with a scenario where we have to reduce our catch by 40% next year. We recognize that there are 3 ways that we can reduce our catch: size limits, bag limits, and seasons. There was a lot of discussion on what recipe would involve what percentages of each of those things. We did not have staff stepped up in substitute roles to help us, but our TOTOG person wasn't there, so we're looking forward to the next meeting. However, probably the most important thing that came out of the meeting, across the board, people are upset about the illegal and unreported catch. And probably by far the strongest sentiment of the meeting was these regulations need to address that in some capacity. That we recognize, I think everybody at the meeting felt that their area had the worstest situation of illegal unreported catching. I obviously know it's the Point Pleasant Canal because I go through it, but we recognize that it is a legitimate problem. And I would say that that was the greatest sentiment that came out of that meeting, that whatever is done, we recognize that there's going to have to be a decrease, but that decrease is going to be recognizing that unreported catch and hopefully giving law enforcement the teeth to be able to do something about this. So, like, there was no motion out of that committee meeting. Thank you. NSAC and Fish and Game Council?
Yes, so just ongoing attempt to keep council apprised of what's happening with the other councils that support the Fish and Wildlife. So we have the agendas from the most recent NSAC and Fish and Game Council meetings. They both met in June. And just late breaking, I don't think I even had it to send to you last night with the supplemental material, but I added it this morning, handout 11B is the agenda for the NSAC meeting that is next Wednesday. And there is a topic of interest on there. Many of you have probably heard that their Osprey and the Chesapeake Bay are having a couple of years of low recruitment, low message success. That is extended to New Jersey. And so the NSAC is actually, we'll be talking next week about the interaction between Osprey and Menhaden in New Jersey, and if there's anything that can be done about it. Joe and I will both be there representing the Menhaden portion of that discussion. I don't have any foreseeable outcomes of that, but just be aware that this could be the, I don't want to blow it out of proportion, it could be the next red knot horseshoe crab issue, Ospreys and Menhaden. So just be aware that it's on their agenda, and we'll keep everyone apprised.
I will mention to council that I reached out earlier in June to NSAC saying that I look forward to working with them on things and offering our help in anything, in any sense of commonality between the two. Hearing that about Menhaden and Osprey, I reached out again this morning, and I volunteered John to be the liaison between our group and their group, mentioning that normally Menhaden within state waters would fall under the purview of the Marine Fisheries Council, and wouldn't it be nice if we worked together on things? So they invited John to the meeting, and I'll get you a copy of the email that I sent so you all know what's going on. But I would much rather try to work with them so that there's a paper trail that we are, and we'll go from there.
So what? Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what, and I gotta figure out how I want to say this here the right way. So why are they getting out of their lane? I guess is the easiest way to put it.
They don't think there's enough Menhaden in nearshore waters, and that's why the Osprey count is down.
But again, it's still out of their lane is what I'm saying now. So
Yes, it is, because we need that's not what the stock assessment shows. And you should think about, like, Sandy Hook had that disease, and the Menhaden was out like 4 or 5 years ago, and the stock has never come back as well up in the rivers there by Sandy Hook. But that has nothing to do with Osprey food.
Right.
And the Menhaden went to Staten Island instead. So we need some really good information on this to prove this.
Well, I think we're sending the right name to take care of it. I think they feed you too, John, I'm not sure.
Not like here.
Yeah, I will say, and to Bob's point, NSAC is only an advisory body, so they are not making any regulations. And staff knows, NSAC staff, Dave is aware of this, they know that whatever, even if NSAC says we want to cut Menhaden harvest by 50%, whatever they want to say, they know that it has to come through council. So staff at least is aware that NSAC will not be driving the bus on this.
Well, no, but I think that it's good that there's going to be actual
interaction,
which is what this council has asked for with a lot of other bodies for years.
But to Bob's point, they are not deciding what our Menhaden regulations are.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
They will
that's
be
good to know.
advising Fish and Wildlife, and Fish and Wildlife will be working internally and with council to decide on what happens.
I just figured if we offered.
Yeah, and they positively responded.
Yeah, we'll get council a copy of that correspondence.
Is this all driven by what they're talking about in Chesapeake Bay? Is that why our endangered non-game has hopped on the bus?
Well, so it started in Chesapeake Bay, but in 2025, New Jersey monitors our Osprey nests also. 2025 was very low nest success. It was like 65% for the state when it needs to be essentially, or sorry, it was 0.65 chicks per nest when we need roughly 1 to 1.25 chicks per nest to maintain. So we were well below.
But then how do
The
they
early
make,
data from 2026 is showing something similar.
then how do they make the jump to the Menhaden then? That's the question.
I'm speaking only from
Well,
what
I'm
I
just,
believe.
I'm trying to understand the rationale here.
According to the bird biologists, the largest reason for brood reduction. So they're still having 2, 3, 4
Well,
chicks.
yeah, but you can't leave in a bunker.
But they're either dying in the nest, or they're not hatching, or they're dying in the nest.
Fledging, yeah.
Not fledging, right. And the biggest reason behind that is food availability. So they might have 4 chicks. The first one that hatches kicks the other 3 out of the nest, and now you're down to 1. And if that one doesn't make it, you've got 0, right? So, and they're pointing primarily to food availability for the reason for these brood reduction actions. But I'm again,
Out
I'm
there,
not
I've
the
seen them
bird
eating, they'll even go out and eating little juvenile flounders.
What's that?
Along the shoreline in Avalon area.
Oh, yeah.
Eating everything.
I'm curious, the only correlation that I see, as a Menhaden fisherman for many, many years is the last couple of years, the Menhaden are small. And I mean, I've been saying this for years that, we look like what I used to experience in Ocean City, Maryland, Virginia, like our coast has changed a lot. And the only reason I really know this is there was guys that fished gear that we couldn't dream of using around here, or we'd have problems with Menhaden. And I would ask them, like, how are you fishing that gear? And the Menhaden were small. And they wouldn't, they were doing things that were just totally foreign to me, where we couldn't even handle what we would have caught Menhaden wise. But now I see, and I always wonder if these ospreys have problems with the smaller ones, like they can't grab them or whatever, because I see them all the time in the morning, out they come, wham, I used to call them my spotter pilots, because, you just watch them and they'll show you where the bait is, but now these last couple of years, that's what correlates with this unsuccess. And I wonder this lower success ratio. So I wonder if anybody's really looked at the size of, so when you go to an osprey nest, right, there's just bones everywhere. You can see what they've been up to, because it's just bones. And I wonder if they have trouble grabbing those smaller fish, because that's what I've seen with the Menhaden. For sure, we have way smaller fish here in the summer now than we've ever. There was always a mix of sizes, but now, and then I'll go to Maine and I'll walk down to Winter Harbor and look over there and I see these 1.5 pound pogies, they call them, just swimming around. And it's commonplace in front of my house. I watch them purse seine, so they never had pogies. So I know those bigger ones are traveling further north. And I wonder if this osprey problem really relates to the size of the fish. And I don't see these smaller ones on top as much. They do come up and pop, but the big ones move in these big masses, when they get up on top and you see them from miles away, you can spot them, but I don't see that. But I do see Menhaden. I see them as I travel every day. I run into them, but they're small. So I wonder if somebody needs to look at that, because that's what I see, like in the wild.
Well, that would be why they probably can't get like silver size and anchovies either.
Yeah, that they just have problems grabbing them. But I have not seen the amount of fish on the surface that you usually see. They're down. But I have seen ospreys flying back to the nest. I've been paying attention to them since we talked, and I look now, and I do see them carrying fish back. But I just wonder if that correlates, with the size of the fish. I wonder if the Chesapeake is experiencing those smaller fish as well. Something to look at.
Greg's got his hand up. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I'll second that. I haven't seen an adult bunker in the ocean this entire spring. Okay, so the only adult bunker I saw when I was fishing in back of Raritan Bay back in April and May. Okay, and when I was fun fishing back there or whatever, in the bay itself, or else in the Shrewsbury River or something like that. And your other point about the smaller ones, I see them on calm days, and I do see them mostly, believe it or not, on sunny days. You know, I mean, they come up, I don't know, you know, they're playing on top or whatever, and there is a fair amount of them. But, you know, about a week or 2 weeks ago, the reduction boats were up north there in Ambrose Channel, and they were looking around. They had the spotter planes and everything else there, you know, and I don't know what went on, but I heard they had a pretty big catch. But this whole spring, you know, and this will even go into last year, I didn't see as many bunker last fall, and I didn't see as many the fall before that in 2024. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm there every day, and I just don't see what we saw 3 years ago. And I'm not blaming that or on this, the Osprey or anything. I know nothing about them, but I'm just echoing what you just said there, Kevin, that, you know, something, they just aren't there. Okay. Like they were there.
So I'm curious, because we see a lot of little tiny peanut bunker in the fall, early fall, inside like Avalon and all. And I wonder if they're picking those up in other parts of the state, the small little tiny peanut bunkers.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. I just don't see the adult bunker.
No,
You know,
I know,
where are
but
the
that's
adult
not-
bunker?
So one question I was gonna have, I was gonna ask Kevin afterwards, maybe it'll come up here. Doing a little bit of research into this, it appears that like target size for osprey is like 4 to 8 or 10 inches. So when you say you're seeing small bunker, what size is small to you?
I'm seeing like 6, a lot of the schools, they have like these 6-inch fish. They're probably under a half a pound or a half a pound. They're small, but like for the last, my whole lifetime, right, it was a pound a piece, right? That's when, you know, right there now, so Greg's family, just thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds over the years, and it was a pound a piece, really. It's what you could, unless you used a different net and you were looking for bigger ones, but it's really what they were, was a pound a piece. So I just wonder, like I said, if, because that's what I used to see him carrying, you know, you'd see him carry him, because you're right there, you know, in the morning they'll do it, and then off they just flying back to the nest, you know.
So this is all good information that I can include in my presentation, that they're there, but they're small and they're below the surface.
Yes.
Well, we've been able to cast net, something like up Sandy Hook, when you can find them, you can catch them.
Yeah,
but
there's fish there.
There are fish there, because I've seen the ospreys catch.
It's not, but it's not what it
It's not what
traditionally
it was. They've
right.
lost most of the Shrewsbury after that disease wiped out a lot of bunker up there. I don't know what else has changed up there. That's something you need to look at the environmental too, Jeff.
Yeah, that's 6 inches, right? Yeah, like
All right.
under a half a pound in weight.
Okay.
Jeff, environmental too, they need to
Thank you.
look at why things changed in Sandy Hook. Something's going on up there in that river.
Regulatory actions? Nothing. Old business. I'm sorry.
Can I make one comment on that osprey thing? You guys ever look into spraying the green eggs?
Please, Pip.
I'm fluke fishing back in the South Bank. I see all those ospreys eating baby fluke all day. And those helicopters come over every couple days spraying the meadows. And I'm not trying to say there's any correlation, but I just see the helicopters come right over top of every one of those osprey nests. Whether they're spraying the eggs or spraying the grass or whatever, it's all probably I'm sitting in it too. But I just see all the time. It's every week. They're low flying. My buddy flies one of the helicopters. And I was asking stuff.
At least he's honest, right?
Yeah, he sends pictures of me like, hey, you know, I just sprayed over top, you know.
You're gonna grow a tail.
Yeah, you're glowing.
They're all over said, you know, all over said, John, I'm spraying that stuff. They're spraying all the meadows throughout the day, or at least around my market.
That's a good question to ask.
Yeah. So they're doing a great thing. I'm just curious what they're spraying, and is there any correlation with that?
DDT.
You want to throw it out there?
I will ask them, I'm not the officer.
Yeah.
May I? We've been, for shell fisheries, we've been down this road for years. I mean, I remember when they were phasing out DDT, and they told you it was nothing, it was like Kool-Aid. I mean, we've watched this come full cycle. So now we're back to, oh, well, the ones that you want to watch for is one where the plane's guiding the helicopter. That's the really bad one, because he's making sure he doesn't miss anything as they spray. You're like, oh, well, this was an adulticide or this was a larvicide. It's just, it goes round and round and round, and you never get an answer. But it would be neat to see just what they would say on this. Because it's spent 20
You need a
years
bird
on
biologist,
this.
yeah.
Maybe longer. It's crazy, but
no different than what they spray the herbicides, the DOT along the edge of the road, and it runs right down into the creek, and you watch the dead grass all the way down into every tributary and every waterway in the state. And they're like, but we're following the directions on the herbicide. Same thing, you know, it's cool.
All right. No regulation.
Committee request?
Yeah, so, at one of the committee meetings we had, there were a few folks who were asking for I gave it to you, I don't know if it was the March meetings or May meetings, but there was a request to see it again. So, you all have the updated committee list again. That's just for your information. No action there.
We've got a couple of vacancies here.
That's, that committee list, I hope you all consider that fluid.
I do, yeah.
All right.
Moving on from there, at the last meeting, there was a request, I believe it was from Bob, for council to write a letter to the Army Corps asking for an audience to talk about maintenance dredging, and it grew into also sand mining and all that. The letter has been drafted. The letter was drafted to say, we would like you to come to our September meeting. I didn't send it because I wanted to hear if there was going to be a striped bass discussion at the September meeting. So now that I know it's going to be a striped bass discussion at the September meeting, I will revise that letter to say we'd like you to come to the November meeting, and that letter will go out.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you an update on where that letter was, not ignoring you.
Well, to give an update on the maintenance part of it, Friday night and Saturday night last week, the 3rd and the 4th, the fireworks barge got stuck coming in. So now there's a big hoo-ha about the point in front of our bridge that we call the Army Corps, and of course the Army Corps says it's your job, and then we call DEP, and the DEP says, well, it's Army Corps job. So we're in a process of trying to figure out who's got jurisdiction over this now. So, but
on a similar note, we presented some information on the ongoing dredge projects, and there was a request for like wedge dredge hole number 63. It's on my list. I haven't gotten there. I just want to give you an update that I haven't forgotten it. You didn't get an update because I haven't done anything, but it's still on my list.
Well, thank you, because I would really like to know where some of these things they're saying really exist.
A similar issue at the last meeting. What's the last meeting when EPA came and gave an update on the HARs? I was going to ask tonight. They offered a couple of ways that we could maintain involvement in that. So I wanted to touch base. Is anyone interested? I know, John, you've reached out to get onto their scientific review panel.
Yeah.
Is anyone else interested? I can get you in touch. Do you guys want to request like annual updates, or just following up on that? What's the best way for us to stay involved?
I think we're sending the best we have here.
So they,
Third time I've heard that.
Yeah.
they,
Aren't you glad you joined?
any other? Yeah, no, they welcomed me. And we actually have the first meeting virtual next Wednesday.
Right after.
Right, yeah,
Meeting with us, right?
yeah, so I'll be meeting out by the end of that day. But,
depending on which way you go home from there, you might not want to leave until after that meeting.
I might do
because,
that, yeah.
Reception in that area is.
Yeah. So, and she did mention that they meet quarterly. So I can give an update in September based on that meeting.
Thank you. Couple more things under old business. At the last meeting, there were a couple of questions. There was like 2 on the enforcement report. There was one about discard rates for fluke under the slot limit, and there was one about the bonus program, the number of 6-pack versus larger boats. Usually I take those questions and I try and send an email to everyone between the meetings. They get that email out, but you have a handout unnumbered here that has the answers to those questions. So just following up from leftovers from last meeting, that is the last thing I have. We'll talk about potential committee meetings, but Mr. Chairman, there was a request to talk about New Jersey Transit. This is an old business issue.
Greg, if you're available, could you give us a chat about NJ Transit?
Yeah, where do you want me to start? I don't know. You know, I'll try to make this as brief as possible. I knew this was coming June 29th. I contacted a few of the other captains. We sent letters to the Coast Guard. We sent letters to New Jersey Transit, you know, telling them, hey, you need to be aware of this because this is 4th of July weekend, one of our biggest weekends of the year, you know, so on and so forth. Talked to all the local politicians, you know, James Holswell, I mean, Sean Keane, you know, Smith's office, did the whole group, you know, spoke to them. They were all talking to these people, and, you know, they basically New Jersey Transit, and, you know, I had direct contact with one of the directors there. He called me back the Wednesday before this happened in the afternoon and said that there's not a thing they can do because they don't have the manpower. We then called the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard said that this isn't in this is not in their jurisdiction, even though we have the right of way. I mean, it went from bad to worse from there. They actually on June 2nd did not open our bridge or the railroad bridge in Manasquan until 8 o'clock at night, and they closed it at 12 o'clock, and they never made an announcement. Bridge tenders knew nothing about it. The next day, we were able to negotiate a 12 o'clock opening on the 3rd. So we had to go, I went out at 6 o'clock, had to be in at 11:30, okay, to get in at 12 o'clock. We got in, they closed the bridge, and unfortunately, a few of the other boats went out in the morning. They came back for the 8 o'clock opening that night on July 3rd. Well, the bridge didn't open until the next morning at 6:45 in the morning because we had a thunderstorm come through that night, and they decided that they weren't going to open the bridges anymore. So I have several party boats spent the night in the river, and I can go on and on, but I think you kind of get the picture with it. New Jersey Transit, you know, has to have some kind of accountability here moving forward. You know, they got to build us into the program. They haven't. I mean, snow removal is in a program. You know, temperature heat has to be put into the program. I mean, you can get trucks. You can. One of the things we said, well, why don't you just get a water truck and hose down the bridge? They said, well, that'll ruin the equipment. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? It'll ruin the equipment. It snows and rains on it every day. You know, this is what we're dealing with. And then we said, well, why don't you stop running the trains, you know, in Long Branch and run a bus service? Well, we don't have the facility or the means to do that. So there's nothing built into their budget on this. But I think moving forward, you know, as we've been aware of the last few years, the climate's changing. It's getting warmer. I mean, I you know, for whatever reason, I'm not going to get into that either, but, you know, it's definitely been a warmer, you know, temperature, and we've had closures the last 3 years. So this isn't going to go away. So sorry I went on with this a little bit, but, you know, if we wanted to, I'd like to make a motion to craft the letter. Sorry, Jeff, I'm not trying to dump on you here, but I will be happy to help you with that, you know, moving forward here. But I think that we should probably try to address it just as a council. And if anybody else would like to second or maybe talk about that, I would appreciate it. So, like I said, I know it's late. I don't want to take up too much time, but thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that motion. Absolutely.
Okay, we have Walter saying second.
By Kevin.
Kevin, all right, great. Any other discussion? The only thing I would mention is that Greg knows all of the correct people to send this to. So hopefully he can work with you, Jeff, to give you the right desks for this to land on.
Yeah, and that as well, but I'm going to need to, this is not an issue I'm familiar with, so I'm going to need some guidance on what does the letter say?
Yeah.
What are the issues? And I'm fully, you know, I'm comfortable writing the letter. I just need a little more meat put into it.
Yeah, well, I think the discussion needs to go about navigational safety, and are these vessels prepared? Do they have fuel to stay out? Are the people prepared? I mean, that's crazy. Like, you know, you're just essentially locking them out of their port. You know, like, holy smokes, that's a navigator's disaster right there. I mean, if you're not prepared for that kind of thing, and if they're just doing that stuff willy-nilly to those guys, it's insane.
I believe
Kevin,
it's
they
fresh
all,
enough in Greg's mind.
they
right now.
offloaded their passengers at 11:30 that on July 3rd. So they offloaded their passengers on a dock on the other side of the bridge. The guy that owned that marina went totally nuts because he didn't want the party boats up against his dock. I mean, when I tell you it was a shit show, excuse me, it's insane. It really was. But Jeff, I'll be happy to, we could talk about it next week or whatever, whenever you get a chance, but we should probably send something along here because it's probably not going to do any good this summer, but if we can address it and maybe they can, like I said, put a plan to put it into their budget, if we can pressure some of the right people here in order to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I'll reach out when I get there. I don't know if this is protocol, but I think that letter should be copied to the governor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
It's a health and safety issue amongst
Yeah,
everything
absolutely.
under the sun. You can call this.
Who's got jurisdiction? Is it federal or is it
Still,
state
I'm
or
kind of
is?
surprised at the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
I would send it to the district, to the Coast Guard district.
Yeah,
No, they need it too.
I'd send it to sector, yeah, at least, or headquarters in DC at least.
The Coast Guard washed their hands of it. That they said they basically did. So New Jersey Transit, is basically, they're calling the shots here. Even, when I called Monmouth County too, the people there, that run the 71 bridge, they said they had nothing to do with the transit bridge, I mean, so this is definitely, New Jersey Transit, the governor's office, the higher ups and everything like that for sure. But the Coast Guard, Bob, getting back to that, they just said that, they were going to wash their hands of this. That's basically what they said to us. And we wrote them a letter.
Is that sector Philly, Greg, or sector?
Yes, that was Sector Philadelphia that manages, our area and everything like that. Yep. The bridges and everything else. We dealt with them last year when this was going on too. When they were, I don't know if you guys remember this, last year they were repairing the bridges in Belmar. So we had that problem there, the openings. So
We can go over sector's head too, so.
Okay,
We have a motion.
can I ask for a vote? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Potential committees?
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, so this is just where we talk about what committees we want to have meet. Reef is still on the list, Spot and Croker, as we mentioned earlier, maybe have a discussion about bag limits if we lose de minimis. I don't think we have a committee for Cobia, but, figure something out there. After the discussion tonight, sharks. At some point, we might want to start thinking about another to-talk committee meeting. We won't get information from ASMFC until after they meet in August, so I don't know if we'll sneak it in before the September meeting or after the September meeting, but, just something to put on the list. We talked about another striped bass, possibly another striped bass committee meeting. We had Brady's comments from previously that will probably kick the black sea bass. That one, I wouldn't necessarily prioritize because we usually have that meeting between September and November. So we could put that then, but I don't want to lose sight of Brady's comments. So yeah, short list, or sorry, just summarize that as reef, spot croaker, shark, striped bass, tautog, and black sea bass. Which one?
Anybody have any thoughts on prioritizing there?
Well, TOG, we can't do anything until we get something from,
Correct.
so that can kind of go on the back burner until we actually do get something.
And I think striped bass, we should wait till you get some response from the questionnaire.
So that leaves sharks.
So that leaves short.
How's that? Jaws.
And reef.
So do you want to, for striped bass, and I haven't fully thought this through. If we do a questionnaire, do we want to get the results of the questionnaire and kick it to the committee before it comes to council? Or, I mean, basically the question is there even time to do a striped bass committee meeting before you need to decide in September what to do?
Well, it depends on, I think you need between now and September to get that questionnaire and results and crunch the info.
Right, but if we send that out
I mean, we could meet in August to summarize and go over what you get.
You want to try and meet in August?
If you feel like you got it, if you got enough responses that it's meaningful input.
Okay, we'll try, I'll put it on the list.
Yeah, and then keep me
and
posted.
we'll evaluate as we get closer,
Yeah.
once we start getting results from the questionnaire.
And I guess sharks, we should meet before September.
That one seems to have risen to the top. Greg's got his hand up.
Yeah, I just want to comment on it, trying to get this done. I like the idea of that, but we're in the middle of the summer here and people, you know, you want to send out I don't know what kind of response we're going to get there, Jeff, on a striped bass thing right now. I just don't, you know, I mean, and I'm not trying to be a naysayer here, but I mean, people are in the middle of their seasons. They're doing things, they're vacationing. It's a tough time of year to do a review. I'm just telling you to send out something and try to get information.
Noted.
We'll put it out and we'll see. And then if we have,
Needless to say, I got.
we think it's a representative set of input, otherwise we'll wait till the meeting.
Put it out to the Groveland, get a place of letters. More concerns.
Pretty cool. A transmitter one.
All right, so I have shark and striped bass, tautog, a little bit later, and we'll do black sea bass at our normal time. September, October timeframe. That's all I've got for old business. I have one item, I don't know if council has.
Go ahead. Yeah,
I have one thing under new business, but I don't know if you want to go to council. I'll go over.
Yeah, just that.
Okay, there's one item under old business, or excuse me, under new business. So you'll remember that when offshore wind was picking up, that's a lot of rain.
Yeah, it's pouring
we got
here.
money from the developers, came to DEP, turned it around as request for proposals to do projects through the research and monitoring initiative. I don't remember how many projects we funded at this point, but some of the early ones are coming to completion. And so I got a request from the RMI staff the other day, whether council wants to see summary results of those projects that have been completed, and the ones that, there's three. One was looking at a novel surf clam dredge to allow these guys to continue fishing in the surf clam, actually in the wind areas. There was a study on the stability of the cold pool and what impacts offshore wind might have on that. And then there was a study that was sending gliders, so ROVs with sensors across the shelf and doing transects across the shelf, collecting baseline information on what's out there. So those three projects are, I believe, done. And if anyone is interested in seeing results of any or all of those, we can sort of work those into the agendas for the next, for upcoming meetings. Don't need to do them all at once. We can spread them out. And I don't need a decision tonight, but just that's on the table. We've been offered the opportunity to see results of those projects.
I'd love to.
Love the science.
Not all one time, but yeah, I'd love to.
I will work with staff and maybe Pat, I'll work with you on agenda, saturation.
Yep.
Would you have staff present or would you have the PIs present?
I would have the PIs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
what we paid them for.
Public comment.
I would just ask, is that going to be public, that offshore wind, those three reports? Or at least
They'll be presented here.
Oh,
And they're on the final.
Oh, thank you, Sarah.
All, on my website, we'll have all the final reports, like a long report and then a summarized report.
Cool.
Is that on the RMI website? Okay, so just Google New Jersey RMI, offshore wind. Like RMI should do it, but add offshore wind, it's not. And there's, they have a pretty good website.
Okay. Anybody else for public comment?
Yeah, just a quick question. So back to the bonus program for striped bass. So I believe that you have to complete the form
your log at the end of the year, whether you catch a fish or not. And that's stipulated to get a tag again the following year. So you have to complete the log or you can't get a tag the following year.
That was, Heather can correct me if I'm wrong, we used to have that, well, it wasn't even that. It was if you returned your log, we automatically sent you your new one. But it's,
No, you have to request on the log, there's a place you check to say, yes, you want another tag. You can get another tag in the middle of the season. Like if I use my bonus tag, sent the log in and said, yeah, hey, I want another tag, generally I get a tag in a matter of weeks.
right. But it's required to send it in, but it is not enforced that you don't get through one. Go on up, Heather.
I think you're just confusing the log and the tag. So it's, you're required to report the tag, and when you report that, you can check the box that you want another one. But the log is different than that. Your log is your report of your daily trips. That's not mandatory.
Well, it's on the log is where you check to get the tag. It's absolutely there. So when you get the log, right, it comes with your tag.
Right.
On that log, there's a box where you check, you say, yes, you want to replace the tag. Now, and it also says on there that if you don't complete the log and submit it by a certain date, I'm sorry, I don't remember the date, I think it's actually in January of the following, I think that's right. If you don't submit the log by that date, you can't get another tag.
I think it says in order to be eligible for the
Correct.
program. Yeah,
Yes, that's probably the right terminology.
yes, yeah, that's what we put in there, but it's not automatic.
So maybe in order to get compliance, maybe we need to enforce that. In other words, if you don't submit the log, you don't get a bonus tag.
It's hard to enforce that when it's a free program for the public. So it's something we struggle with every year.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. It's just,
Well, I'm just saying, you're looking to get the data. So there's one possibility is just to enforce that. So I'm sorry, you don't get a tag if you don't submit a log. And the second thing I just want to make sure I'm clear is that while there's a quota attached to the bonus tag program, it's actually the number of bonus tags available that dictates how many fish are caught. Like, we'll never come close to the quota because we don't issue enough tags to get there.
we are allowed to issue the number of tags that was, if every single one was used, we would catch our quota. So if I'm using round numbers, if our quota is 1 million pounds and we assume an average weight of 10 pounds per fish, we are allowed to distribute 100,000 tags because 100,000 times 10 is 1 million.
But we don't issue that, we only issue 20,000, 24,000.
What's that? With the buffer, okay.
Yeah, so
I'm using round numbers, right? So whatever, 24,000 times whatever the average weight is, it's like 6.5. Multiply those together, that's what our quota is. If every single tag, no, come on, guys, come on, don't be shy. I don't know the program.
There's just a buffer in there too. So it's that number plus a little extra so that we don't go over.
Right.
It's an insurance policy essentially.
Which goes back to my point, is that even if you issued all the tags, you can't get the quota because you have a buffer built in. So I just want to make sure that I have that right. That it's not the quota, it's the number of tags that are issued.
Right, but we were required to do that by ASME.
that's the
Because if we
ASME.
picked the exact number, that'd be too close for comfort.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. John Personaire, just real quick. I just want to go back to the shore-based shark fishery, because I know this comes up at the HMS meetings quite a bit. I'm just in support of expanding any opportunities for commercial or recreational fishermen to fish on shark species and fisheries that are sustainable and well-managed. Just 2 points I wanted to make real quick. On sharks, it seems like we kind of fall into this catch-all of vulnerability. A lot of times I just think it plays out in a different way. I think spiny dogfish is one where we managed on the side of hyper precaution, and that stock turned out to be far more productive than anyone ever thought. And I think we're seeing that with a lot of other elasmobranchs, and that's why we're seeing this explosion. The other part I want to mention too is having these directed fisheries from a data perspective is probably really valuable. I think we've seen a lot of our directed shark fisheries, both commercial and recreational, been squashed by regulations. So if we can have some opportunities to bring back some directed shark fisheries, I think it helps from the data perspective. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to key on that too, what John was saying, that the depredation problems in the South are just off the charts, right? I mean, anybody you talk to from the Carolinas into the Gulf, you get 1 out of 10 fish in the boat. It's become a real problem where I think it's going to become a political issue real soon because nobody can land a fish. Feeding the sharks. So
I think NIMS just put out a depredation study recently.
Any other public comment? Anybody on the line with public comment? Oh, Paul.
Just one quick thing. Jeff said it would be hard to enforce like the requirement to submit the log on a bonus program because it's free. I'm wondering why that is. We have a saltwater registry that's free and that's enforced.
Thank you.
Good question. Just handout number 13 is some written comments that we've gotten about relatively relevant elasmobranch fisheries. So they're seeing skates washed up dead on the beach. So looking for some additional conservation there, but just for your information.
So are they skates or count as rays?
I haven't seen them, so.
Yeah, that's what I would, right?
I think an important identification would be
skates. They're probably skates. They're probably clear nose skates.
Clear nose, yeah.
They'll bite the bait.
Yeah. Anybody else on council want to bring anything up? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
We're good. Barney?
Good night.